ask questions, we'll definitely have that opportunity, but that will come after the committee has their discussion. All right.
And one more thing.
Yeah.
This committee does recommendation and bring the recommendation to the full board, and it's finally voted at the full board.
Yes. Yes. So yes, as with all the other committees on CB4, we draw up resolutions. They are fleshed out internally within the committee, and then they are brought to the full board for a full vote of the entire board. Okay. So we're going to start with the first item up for discussion is a street co-naming application for our neighbors at the Signature Theater on West 42nd Street between Dyer and 10th Avenue. And just so everybody's aware, street namings or co-namings refer to the kind of commemorative names. The names of the streets, according to the grid system, are still in effect. These commemorative names are overlaid onto the street names, and there's usually one of the street signs that's installed, or one or more signs. And we have specific criteria for approving co-naming applications, but we're going to hear from the Signature Theater. And who is it from the Signature who's presenting?
It's Beth. I'm Beth Whitaker, and Paige Evans, our artistic director, is going to kick us off.
Hi. Great. Hi, Beth. Hi, Paige. Do you have visual material?
We do. Janine has very kindly received a lot of materials from us.
Okay,
and
great.
So I think Paige is going to introduce, and then if Janine can pull up the PDF we sent today, or pull it up now, which is great.
Okay. So Janine will walk us through your slides.
Great.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm Paige Evans. I'm artistic director of Signature Theater. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank the co-chairs and members of the Transportation Planning Committee for your consideration for our proposal tonight. Thank you for hearing us out. I've been Signature's artistic director for almost 6 years now, having followed Jim Houghton after a planned search for his successor when he was diagnosed with cancer in 2014. I was very happy in my previous job as artistic director of LCT3 at Lincoln Center Theater, but I was drawn to Signature because of its deep dedication to playwrights and producing their bodies of work, as well as to its commitment of making theater accessible for all. This was Jim Houghton's singular vision, and it remains unique in the American theater. And now I'll turn it over to Signature's Associate Artistic Director, Beth Whitaker.
Thank you so much, Paige. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I've been with Signature since 1999. I'm grateful to have worked with Jim Houghton for 17 years, and I've seen firsthand the impact Jim had on so many playwrights and their artistic collaborators, staff, supporters, and audiences. Signature was influential from its beginnings and is unique in that throughout its rapid growth, it has maintained an accessible human scale. That is due to Jim's inspiration and insistence that the theater always put its community at its center. Also, I want to note that I'm proud to have lived in Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan Plaza for 13 years. And as an employee of Signature, I've worked at various locations in the neighborhood for 23 years now. I'm honored to be representing Signature to the community board and advocating for what would be a great testament to Jim's legacy. Finally, before we start the presentation, on a very sad note, I want to acknowledge for all the community who are here that Jim Houghton's wife, Joyce O'Connor, passed away earlier this month after her own battle with cancer, and you will see her in the presentation. She was instrumental to the founding of Signature, and we deeply mourn her loss. And Jim and Joyce's daughter, Lily Houghton, is here watching tonight. We all thank you very much for your time and consideration for this proposal. And Janine, if you will, you can start us off with the first slide. On behalf of Signature Theater's community of artists and audiences, the staff and board of Signature are proposing to co-name the block of 42nd Street between Dyer and 10th Avenue in honor of Signature's transformative founder and beloved neighborhood figure, James Jim Houghton, who tragically passed in 2016 at the age of 57. Jim had a profound impact on the American theater landscape. Next slide, please. He had two homes, Signature Theater, which he founded in 1991 and which thrived under his visionary leadership, and Manhattan Plaza, where he lived from 1995 until his death. Next slide, please. Thank you. Jim's legacy is Signature, the Pershing Square Signature Center, and Signature's distinct mission to be a home for playwrights. Next slide. And from a Signature playwright in residence, Tony Kushner, I don't think there was anyone in the theater community more beloved than Jim. Next slide, please. Jim arrived in New York City in 1986. Working as an actor with the playwright Romulus Linney, Jim was struck by the scope of Romulus's writing and by the singular experience of having the playwright in the rehearsal process. Next slide, please. Inspired by the vitality of that creative environment, Jim envisioned a company that made an extended commitment to an individual writer and that always strived for a sense of community and connectivity. The result was Signature Theater. And a quote from an early champion of the company, Mel Gusso, in the New York Times: "Unless the playwright's name happens to be Shakespeare or Shaw, a theater goer rarely has the opportunity to see an author's plays in context. The new Signature Theater Company is meeting an artistic need by devoting an entire season to a single writer." And these are some photos from the early years of Signature, including a photo of the film actor Edward Norton in an Edward Albee play. This was his first professional acting job, and he's remained loyal to the company as a trustee for many years. Next slide, please. In just its first few seasons in operation, Signature Theater rose to theatrical prominence for its unique mission and world-class productions, even as the company remained small in size. Next slide. Signature's success was due. Yes.
I'm sorry, but just I'm sure everybody's interested in the history of the theater and of Jim's professional role, and I am definitely interested. But just in the interest of time, do you think we can maybe jump to the part of the presentation that is relevant to like the street naming process?
Sure. I guess, Janine, maybe if you, I was just trying to set up sort of the history of the company and its value to,
Sure.
to New York. So Janine, maybe let's see if you can jump to the next slide. I think this is important. Just Jim was always committed to community and accessibility and a democratic environment. The next slide. Adrian Kennedy is one of the early playwrights. Next slide. In 1997, Signature found the site for its first permanent home nestled on the outskirts of the theater district at 555 West 42nd Street. So an early impact on this part of the city. Next slide. And that was an unprecedented achievement for such a young company. Really moved forward by Jim. Next slide. And again, same idea, down on 42nd Street. Next slide. Next slide. Arthur Miller stating the value of the company as close as you can get to a home for writers. Next slide. Some early photos of the company. Next slide, please. Thank you, Janine. Next slide, please. Early esteemed writers from Signature. I think this is very important to Jim's contribution to the community. Under his leadership in 2005, the theater launched the Signature Ticket Initiative in an effort to break down economic barriers and to make theater accessible for all. This program was the first of its kind, offering subsidized tickets for every seat at every performance during a production scheduled run. And at that time, the average off-Broadway ticket price was around $65, and the Ticket Initiative price was $15. Next slide. And from the New York Observer, signature season of August Wilson plays with their policy of bargain ticket prices is the best thing the theater has ever done. Just to note, we started the ticket initiative in the August Wilson season with plays that had mostly been done just on Broadway in New York. When we put the season on sale, there was a line down the block on 42nd Street to buy $15 tickets for those productions. Next slide, please. This is more about the ticket initiative, which is now, as of 2019, provided over 1 million subsidized tickets. Next slide, please. In addition to being founding artistic director of Signature, Jim was also a 21-year resident of Manhattan Plaza, where he and his wife, Joyce O'Connor, raised their 2 children, Lily and Henry. Next slide. More neighborhood activity. Next slide, please. Jim dreamed of growing the company to include more opportunities for writers and the theater community at large. After a $70 million capital campaign, Signature built the Pershing Square Signature Center on 42nd Street between Dyer and 10th Avenues. The center houses 3 theaters, rehearsal rooms, administrative offices, a bookstore and cafe, and most importantly to Jim, a lobby that is open to the public. Next slide, please. These are some photos of the center. This is the largest theater, which is also just 300 seats. Our bookstore, which is open for browsing, in the lobby. Next slide, please. Another theater, interactive touch screens, and a sort of lounge area in the lobby. Next slide, please. And the flexible theater and our street level box office on 42nd Street. Next slide, please. The center was designed by renowned architect Frank Gehry, who normally wouldn't design the interior of a building, but he was so inspired by Jim's vision that he and his team took it on as kind of a passion project. Next slide, please. So just some numbers about the center. As of 2020, the center averaged 375,000 visitors, 420 employees, and 1,000 volunteers annually. As of December 2021, the center has hosted over 500 rentals, from long-term productions and rehearsals to one-day events. 55% of these were nonprofit organizations. In its 30 years, Signature has produced 127 plays by over 30 playwrights in residence, and the Signature Ticket Initiative sold its millionth subsidized ticket without age restrictions, lotteries, or rush lines in May 2019. Tickets are currently $35. Next slide, please. And now Paige is going to share some support for this proposal from some of our neighbors.
Thanks, Beth. I'm just reading quotes from messages from some of our neighbors. This is from Adam Greenfield, who's artistic director at Playwrights Horizons, also on West 42nd Street. The staff and board of Playwrights Horizons fully support the co-naming of Jim Houghton Way. Jim's impact on the landscape of playwriting in the United States can't be overstated, nor can his contributions to the cultural life of our city and the vitality of Hell's Kitchen. This is from Todd Hames, artistic director, and Julia Levy, executive director of Roundabout Theater Company, which has a theater, the American Airlines, also on West 42nd Street. In just a quarter of a century, Jim grew the company from a small downtown theater to become one of the leading not-for-profit theaters in our country. Perhaps most courageous was his commitment to ensuring that Signature Theater was accessible to all New Yorkers through their Signature Ticket Initiative. It is especially for this reason that we not only support, but encourage you to recognize his continuing legacy with this naming. From Adam Bernstein, executive director of the New Group, which is a resident company at the Pershing Square Signature Center. The theaters along this block represent the heartbeat of off-Broadway, and you would be hard-pressed to find a leader in the New York City cultural community with more heart than Jim Houghton. He believed in the power of art to transform community and invested his entire life to build and sustain a rich legacy in New York City, his own backyard. This is from Steve Olson, owner of the West Bank Cafe, also on West 42nd Street. Jim Houghton must be celebrated by any means possible so he won't be forgotten, like a lot of the brilliant playwrights he produced and whose careers were resurrected. From Emma Montoya Hills, general manager of Theater Row, also on West 42nd Street. Signature Theater is an amazing community and art space created in the vision of Jim to be a home for playwrights and artists. His vision allowed the creation of the Pershing Square Signature Center, an anchor for cultural development on this block of 42nd Street. And from Bernie Telsey and Will Cantler, co-artistic directors of MCC Theater in Hell's Kitchen. When Jim moved the Signature Theater into the Pershing Square Signature Center, it was a pivotal and transformational moment in New York and the American theater. He added a glorious and welcoming cultural hub to the neighborhood that is not simply a destination for plays, but a vital all-day meeting hub for theater people across New York City. He was a neighborhood fixture who always made time to stop and talk and seemed to know everyone. He lived, he inhabited, he breathed, and he believed in those precious blocks around him. And now there's one final slide that I would like to read from the slide. Richard Hunnings.
I think it back up a little bit, Janine. Back up a bit more. Yes, right here, right here.
Right.
That's it.
So Richard Hunnings was a longtime general manager of Manhattan Plaza. Singularly talented, Jim reflected the best of our community. He was loving, caring, dynamic, and shared his immense creative gifts with the world at large and with us in particular. Like Manhattan Plaza, the Signature Theater celebrated the city's vibrant multicultural life. We rejoice when the theater he so loved and brilliantly nurtured opened across from us on 42nd Street.
Thank you, Paige, and thank you, Janine. We have just a few more slides to wrap up here. If you want to go forward and go ahead. These are some shows from the center. Keep going. Thank you. Just noting in 2014, Signature Theater was awarded the Regional Theater Tony Award and was the first theater in New York City to be honored with that distinction. Thank you, Janine. If you'll flip to the next slide. In addition to the Tony Awards, Signature has received numerous awards in its 30 years. These include 2 Pulitzer Prizes for plays originally produced at Signature and all the awards you see here. Next slide, please. From Edward Norton, very few people are possessed of an authentic artistic talent, brilliant institutional vision, leadership skill, and deep commitment to service. Jim inspired me as much as anybody I've ever worked with. He elevated everybody around him as artists and as people. Next slide, please. And incredibly, Jim's influence extended even beyond Signature. He was also the chair of Juilliard's drama division for 10 years. Next slide. Jim very much believed in relationships with people, as I said, in the center of his work in the community. Next slide. And the lobby of Signature, the Pershing Square Signature Center, is a physical embodiment of the slogan Jim used often to describe the ethos of Signature: orchestrated collisions. Relationships made at the theater were what fueled the plays. And in the lobby of Signature, which again is open to the public, artists and audience could come together in a single shared space. Next slide, please. In conclusion, Jim's influence and reach was truly exceptional in the cultural life of New York City and beyond. Signature is a national model for its unique focus on playwrights, its subsidized ticket program, and the artistic and community home that the Pershing Square Signature Center provides. Jim was also known for his great humanity. We would be thrilled to honor his legacy by putting his name on 42nd Street, a street long associated with New York theater and in the neighborhood he loved and served. Thank you so much to Manhattan Community Board 4 for considering this proposal. We really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paige and Beth. I have to say, I'm like a huge fan of the mezzanine seating area in the building. It's like a great writing space for me. So I'm going to bring this to the board, to the committee, and I have up the Community Board 4's criteria for street renaming, and I just want to read the 3 sections that are like the main criteria that we try to address, and ask all of you if you feel that, based on the presentation that we've seen and based on the support that was, the record of support that was provided, if you feel that we are meeting the criteria here. So the first item is long-standing presence and association with the community in the vicinity of the proposed sign. I think it's pretty clear that they have met that goal. The person must have an extraordinary record of public service to the community, city, state, country, or world. And then the third one is strong local support for the proposed sign. So I'm just gonna put it out there that I believe that the first criteria is definitely met. I believe the second criteria, it's a question of whether we believe that the innovations and expansion of the artistic vision at the theater meets that measure of a form of community service. And on the third item, I believe that the local support has been demonstrated. So what say you, committee members? Christine?
I think that it met all requirements. This is Rob.
Rob, you feel like all the requirements have been met?
Yeah, I do. I understand what you were saying about the second one, but with their presentation, and plus there was some information that they skipped over a little bit because they wanted to wrap this up and not drag it on too long, but I felt that they did hit, at least minimally it, for the second.
Yeah, I mean, I'll wait to hear from everybody else, but I'll weigh in on that point also. Christine, and then we'll go to Jesse.
Yes, I think it's, I definitely agree that they hit on the first one and the second one. On the middle one, I think the introduction of that unique policy for accessibility to all theater goers was really prescient with our discussions today about equity, etc. I mean, this was a person who was way ahead of his time and then I think the second point of putting the writers at the middle of the theater is pretty unusual, and it's probably something that many people, so those two things make that the rest of the country is copying that. And I think this is very important in our times to acclaim people who have done those things. So I'm usually against those namings, but in this case, I think this is a very compelling argument, and for somebody who looked like it was a brilliant participant in our community.
Great. Okay, Jesse.
I'll just add, I know Jim was a beloved member of the theater community. And I know, Signature has goes out of its way to, and it's probably mission to develop artists, young artists, new artists to the city, to help them grow and develop and become situated and established actors, playwrights. And I think that speaks volumes in terms of community service. And then I'll just also add that I give great weight to the how you've reached out to your neighbors, playwrights, West Bank Cafe, and to have them so unanimously all support this renaming is really incredible and inspiring, honestly. So I'm definitely think that all 3 criteria are met, and I'm going to be happy to lend my vote to this. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Jesse. Next up is Brett.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. When I first saw this on the agenda, I was thinking a little reluctant here. We got could this be for promotional purposes for the theater? And then when I was looking more into it and the background and the information that was provided, I'm thinking, oh, this is someone who's actually spent the bulk of his adult life on this block, and it really is a fairly dominant feature on the block. And given all the support that they're showing, This is, I'm a little bit like Christine. I'm really hard to win over on these things, but I think this is one of those that I think does, this is someone who really did make a very, a significant difference on a very local location like this. And so I think I would support it. So, you know, but I just want to make sure I'm on record that usually I'm a tough sell on these things. So don't think that I'm just going to be a softie on these going forward.
Thanks, Brett. Do we have any other committee members who wish to comment or have any questions? Okay, am I missing anybody? Okay, I'm going to chime in and say that based on the proposal and based on the information that was provided, I believe that the criteria, the second criteria, which is the record of public service to the community, is met through the lens of Jim's creative life. And I think that's important for this district. This is a theater district after all. So I do think this is an important designation. And I do think it serves the community at large to learn more about his career. And I don't think it's based on the footprint that Signature has on the block already. I don't think it will necessarily add to their marketing strategy. So I don't think it's like a craven grab at like publicity. I do think it's just it comes across as a genuine, you know, interest in honoring the person who was so instrumental to their founding and who has had a lot, has a big footprint in the creative endeavors of our district. So do we want to, does somebody want to summarize a letter of support?
Well, oh, Viren is.
Viren, your hand is up. Go right ahead.
And I just want to sort of echo what everyone has said. I'm just sort of making a larger statement because 42nd Street, East and West, don't even begin to describe how that street actually changes. And when it comes to our own district in MCB4, it's a kind of district of neighborhoods, right? Theater district, Button district, Flower district, you name it, House Kitchen, Chelsea, South Clinton. And so I think any chance we get to give names to these numbered streets is always welcome, but especially in a case like this, where it actually makes sense to do so,
I agree.
I'm all for it. And I think that's sort of giving it more identity to the kind of person who actually begins to define that block differently is a good cause for us to support this application.
I fully agree with that point, Viren. It's very, you know, especially in that there's a little pocket of theaters that's on 42nd Street of all places, and you have Dyer with all the tunnel traffic. It's like, and I mean, nothing is going to redeem us from MEMA, but except maybe the Signature Theater. But I just don't like that building as a building. But you know, it would be very helpful to recognize, identify, and strengthen the theater identity of that little pocket of our neighborhood. Jesse, did you have your hand up for one of them?
Yeah, I just have a quick logistical question, which is assuming the street sign goes up, how do we, you know, make it clear that we're renaming that particular section of 42nd Street and not all of 42nd Street?
Oh, it would be in the language of our resolution.
Sure, but I mean, the actual street sign, it'll say 42nd, you know, but what will the sign say?
Jesse, they usually install the sign at the beginning of the street, the block. So it goes for one block typically.
Okay.
Yeah. In this case, it would be the block between Dyer and 10th, since that's where the theater is.
Makes sense.
So it's like it's a relatively short block because
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's like 9.5 to 10.
Yeah.
But it's the spirit that matters.
Sorry, I have a sort of related question. I mean, how do we make a distinction between calling something a way versus a place?
I'm sorry, say that again.
You know, sometimes you have these little stretches between two avenues, and they're named as such and such place, like Waverly Place, for example. So what is the distinction between calling something a place versus a way?
Oh, I
think along the streets, it's usually called away unless there is kind of a sense of plaza or whatever
That's
that
what I'm
allows that. So I think if you are on a street and there is no place to stop there, I
okay,
think,
got it.
right,
Got
that
it.
would
No,
be
you're right, Christine. I
way.
think you
Right.
pointed something out that I just occurred to me. You're right. I mean, it either ends with the park or it ends in a dead end, and that becomes a place.
Right. I mean, this is a co-naming, so the 42nd Street sign will remain, and there will be another sign placed underneath it, as there is in several areas. I think we got one for, didn't we get one for 44th Street?
We
for,
got 43rd Street, which was a radio announcer, which was in the radio business forever. We got one on 25th Street. We got one on, there was a number of them in Chelsea.
Didn't we get one for the woman who was instrumental in the
We approved
Roosevelt?
it, but where is it? I can't remember.
Francis Perkins on 46th
Yes.
Street by
Yeah, we got one for Francis Perkins, right?
by the Holland House or whatever they call it. But I can't
Yes.
remember. But I'd
Hartley
like to
House.
I'd like to make a motion that we name this street after Jim Horton on 42nd and Dyer.
Okay, so that we recommend yes to the co-naming
Yes.
application.
Yes.
Yeah, that we yes. And we have a second. All right. So I'm going to take a vote of the committee members. All in favor?
You know, we didn't ask whether there were anybody in the public who wanted.
Oh, let me
to
double
speak
check.
about it.
Janine, did we have any speakers from the public?
I don't see any hands up. Oh wait, there is.
Oh.
There's Lily Horn. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Before we vote, I think we know where to
All
vote.
protocol is off.
But before we vote, we are going to hear from a member of the public who wanted to speak. Sorry to have missed you. It's just the Zoom protocol. Hi, Lily.
Hi, I'm Lily Houghton. I'm Jim Houghton's daughter. Just thank you so much. I was raised by this community. I grew up on 43rd and 9th. I lived in Manhattan Plaza my whole life. When my dad was sick, West Bank sent us food every night. This is a community that raised me. And obviously theater is very important, and the parts of theater that my dad was a part of is important, but he always talked about it like a community center first and foremost. So I just wanted to thank you all so much. We also, as Beth said, just lost my mom a couple weeks ago, and I can't even tell you how much this will mean to me and my brother that were raised by this community. So thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Sorry for your recent loss.
Really sorry.
Thank
So
you. I
sorry for
really
your loss.
appreciate that. And I can't even tell you how grateful I am for this. So thank you. And it's so lovely to hear your words. And thank you to Beth.
Well,
everyone.
the folks at Signature made their case. They made it.
They really did.
Okay, so we're going to vote. Do we have anyone else that I missed? Because I don't really see hands on the attendee.
No, there's no one else.
Okay, so we have the motions on the floor. All those in favor of approval of the street co-naming as proposed? Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Rob. Any opposed? Any present not eligible? Okay, great. So that passes, and we'll have the letter up and ready for the next board meeting.
And then it would be a good idea for some of you to come to the full board. And there is a session for public speaking with 2 minutes per person, and you can speak at the beginning.
Yeah, and the goal there is, I mean, you know, it's going to the 50 members of the full board committee. It's the first Wednesday in February. And the goal is to make a very concise case meet with regard to the criteria that's in our criteria letter. In other words, longstanding presence in association, extraordinary record of public service, and strong local support. In 2 minutes.
Each.
Yeah, for each speaker.
If you have 10 people, that's pretty long.
So
Can I ask a question about that? Sorry, but do we also, in that situation, are we able to give a some full presentation?
Just speaking.
So it's just 2 minutes, and that's what
It's
we
2
have.
minutes per. Yeah, that's the protocol for the full board meeting. It's 2 minutes per speaker, and you can speak. Lily can. Anybody who wants to speak can speak. It would be helpful if you didn't repeat each other's points. Like maybe each person take a point. Like, I want to tell you about the community support we have for this. I want to tell you about Jim's record of public service in the arts. I want to tell you about his longstanding presence in the community. So like
Perfect.
break it up and
Okay.
then convince the 50 board members to vote yes.
Okay. Thank you. Great.
And we will do our part as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was very beautiful presentation.
Oh,
Thank
well,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you all so
Thank
much.
you.
Really
so much.
are so grateful. Thank you. Bye.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we're switching gears a little bit and moving on to a presentation from DoorDash, which is one of the many grocery delivery services that has a presence in the community district. DoorDash is looking at a location on West 25th Street, and we have Tony is here from DoorDash. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
So
much.
I just to set the pace for everybody else. We had some questions about this delivery, about the operations of DoorDash, and Tony is gracious enough to come and meet with us and address those questions. So I'll hand it over to you, Tony.
Thank you so much. And our apologies, we weren't able to get to you sooner, but I really am looking forward to tonight's conversation. If I may, let me begin by giving some background on the Dashmarts, a little bit about DoorDash, and maybe address a couple of the items that I know have surfaced. And then certainly I will be here to take any questions that you have. And if I can't answer them, I will certainly get the right folks to address them. For background, my name is Tony Anaya, and I lead our government relations team at DoorDash. I was looking at the community district map, and I actually lived in the district at 55th and 9th up until I got married and had a couple of kids, and we ended up going to New Jersey, a familiar story, but I really miss New York, and I miss this neighborhood. So it is something I spent several years in, so I feel as though I understand it to some extent. I'm also joined on the call, although she won't be presenting tonight, by Sasha Owen, who is our new government relations lead in New York City. If the name sounds familiar, it's probably not a surprise. She's coming to us from Scott Stringer's office, where she served as chief of staff. And I'm really excited to have Sasha on board because she not only brings tremendous amount of expertise, but she's a New Yorker, and she'll be able to better address the issues like the one tonight proactively, and is going to be a tremendous resource for the company and hopefully for the community. From the beginning, let me really state that it's our genuine and sincere desire to work with the community. Our business itself is inherently local, and we always listen carefully to feedback from community stakeholders and understand the importance of ensuring that our Dashmart locations are contributing to the New York City's vibrant and active city streets. We welcome and we will implement feedback that we hear from you tonight, down the road, or at any time. We want to be good neighbors, and we want to really serve the community. For background again, on December 6th, we introduced 15-minute deliveries via Dashmart in New York City through our location in Chelsea at 152 West 25th Street. Dashmart is a virtual convenience and grocery store offering 2,000 fresh and frozen groceries, staples, snacked, packaged goods, and local products direct to your door in 15 minutes or less. The Chelsea location is our first. We opened 2 since then, and we are looking at opening additional locations throughout New York City. We're learning a lot about the initial location, and we'll certainly share some of those learnings tonight. Again, if you look at what the Dashmart offers, these are fresh and frozen grocery staples, snacks, packaged foods, things that you might need for last minute shopping needs, whether you forgot an ingredient for dinner or you need to get eggs and milk midweek. Because we do offer so many fresh groceries, there is a shelf life, and we do have excess food we've right now we're partnering with Chelsea Community Fridge and Cupboard. Every day, sometimes twice a day, they come by and collect food that is approaching the time where we need to cycle it, but it's been a really good partnership, and we're learning a lot from that. Ideally, we are distributing all the food that we have, but we realize that's not always realistic, and we want to make sure that we're not contributing to any type of food waste. A lot of people ask why 15-minute grocery, and I'll be honest, when I first heard about it, I kind of shook my head a little bit, but what we've learned a lot is that, customers like this convenience, and customers and merchants' needs are evolving. And we learned a lot from COVID, and it just really was accelerated, that need and that desire to have access. I believe a lot of folks have entered into the segment. I cannot speak, nor would I speak for them, but I can tell you that DoorDash is looking to do this responsibly and in a way that, again, is just a value add to the community. Recognizing that we do have an impact on local business, we want to go in with our eyes open and work with local business. We're committed to supporting the local business, and I'd like to share a few things that we're doing, and I think this will evolve, and certainly input we get from you will be important. We're currently stocking and selling some of the best products from small merchants around the city right now, including Roberta's Frozen Pizzas, Carbone Fine Foods Pasta Sauces, and Bob's Bagels. And we're also partnering with the nonprofit Hot Bread Kitchen, and we'll be selling products from local women of color owned brands such as Shab Sauces and Shaquanda Will Feed You. Again, this is just the beginning, and we plan to have hundreds of these items in the Dashmarts by the end of 2022. We are also working with the bodegas to test market a 15-minute delivery service for the bodegas. So this would be the bodega having its own external facing website or access point, and we would be the ones fulfilling that order for the bodegas. This is in early stages, but I think we've learned a lot from delivery that we're going to be able to effectively offer that service. And we're also offering, launching in New York City, a bodega boot camp, which will help support bodegas in helping them build out their own virtual stores. So again, it's steps that we're taking along with others to certainly understand the neighborhoods, the impacts we have, and really bring the services to all of the community members. There are about 400 bodegas currently in New York City that are on the DoorDash platform, either doing food delivery of some sort, and I think that's growing. And we've also launched a New York City Small Business Advisory Council, which is a group of small business owners and leaders who can advise us on how DoorDash can best serve small businesses in New York City.
Nice.
Currently, we're really excited to welcome the New York Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Haitian American Caucus, and the Bronx Chamber of Commerce to the council.
Tony, can I
please.
ask you, with the bodega initiative, what is the business model? So you are providing a service, which is a platform, and you're charging the bodegas, or how does that work? How does the money work?
It's precisely, we're essentially offering, acting as the backbone for the bodega. So we're providing access to additional customers for the bodega. And depending on the arrangement that we have, there's a number of different partnerships depending on whether or not you want marketing services, or if you just strictly want to use our platform and have your own external face. So there is usually a commission in the transaction. We try to keep that as low as possible, and are constantly developing that. So I can tell you it's not an expensive offering, and it does provide access to additional and incremental business for the businesses. So it's something that we're learning from, and I think we're going to put a lot of effort into that particular model.
Yeah.
I can share more specifics on the offerings with the board and get you some numbers, but in general, it depends on the types of services that we're offering, and we do try to keep it as
yeah. I mean, couple of things, like the brunt of our concern stems from the concept. I mean, we've seen this before, like with neighbors love getting packages delivered at home. Amazon is like the prime mover in that space. And then we get complaints from the neighbors about the truck traffic on the street, right? So it's like driven by the consumer. But the main concern we have with this model are twofold. One is that there's the business is based on the premise of fast delivery, which puts a burden on the delivery folks and potentially the safety of pedestrians and drivers in our streets. So in the way that Amazon offloaded last mile services onto our sidewalks because they have their last mile delivery people sorting packages on the streets, your business model, or the business model of the industry at large, is offloading that kind of the kind of burden of that promise of rapid delivery onto our streets and sidewalks. That's one. The second thing is the current environment of this sector, which is highly competitive. There's a, and I know you can only speak for you as a provider, but you are in a space which is highly competitive, and everybody's clamoring to get to get the biggest market share they can, especially with like, the pandemic, so that they can make it to the top of the pile. So there's dozens of providers who've got this venture capital funding, and they're making all sorts of offerings like, we'll give you $50 off your first delivery and we'll get it to you in 15 minutes. So it's compounding the basic premise, which is we are going to risk safety at the pedestrian and street level. And not only that, we're going to go into like a shark feeding frenzy of venture capital funded competing businesses vying for dominance in the same space. So that's the basis of our concern. I know you can't address the latter because you're one of many players. Well, you can address it. You can address how you're going to deal with, the environment that you're setting up shop in. And so I'll stop talking. I just had one other question. Is Chelsea operational as of now?
It is. It
Okay.
went operational December 6th.
Okay, and what is the precise location?
152 West 25th Street.
Okay, and is it a dark store, or is it, can you also just do pickups there?
You can do pickups there. I was actually there this morning. The location, it's pretty well lit. I know a lot of the concerns have been about film on the windows. One of the feedback points we're trying to take is how do we make the actual storefront more appealable from the street level? But from what I saw, we're making tremendous progress. And when you're presented with the app, when you use the app, you're presented with the opportunity to either pick it up there at the location or have it delivered. Let me address your first two questions. And I do want to really get into the environment because I do think these are important issues. In terms of delivery radius and safety, this is probably our biggest priority. And we've intentionally kept the delivery radiuses small enough to where a 15-minute delivery can be effectively done in a safe manner. So the radius in which we're serving, we've carefully calculated to make sure that we can hit those targets in terms of getting the groceries picked to the delivery courier and delivered within that period of time. Do we hit the 15 minutes? Not all the time. Do we go over on occasion? Yes. Will we get better? Yes. Is anybody penalized for late delivery? Certainly, not our employees, but it's something that we're striving to do, and we can do that in an incredibly safe manner.
So what is the delivery radius in New York City?
It's going to depend on the exact location, but it's fairly small. So think about where an e-bike could reach in a period of 5 to 7 minutes.
So
again,
can you ballpark it for us? Is it like a mile? Is it half a mile?
Let me get some better estimates. Some of this is a bit proprietary, so I want to be careful that I'm not sharing, but I do want to represent the area accurately.
Okay.
I think we'd like to see the footprint on a map around the Chelsea location, and not to share it with everybody, but at least for our own understanding of where is it going.
Understood. And let me see what I can pull together. And again, like I said, I do need to balance some of this. Competitive information, but I understand.
In other words, if somebody is if somebody lives outside of the radius of 152 West 25th Street, and they're not eligible to get deliveries, then, right?
That's correct. So,
if I'm on 34th Street,
but wait, but then you tell them. What do you tell them on the phone?
It's all done through the application on the phone. So if you are within our delivery radius and you go to the DoorDash app, you will be presented with the option to purchase from the DoorDash Dashmart. And
okay.
If you're outside of that radius, it's not an option.
Okay, so you start with the address and then you determine eligibility. So your radius is not like a corporate secret. I mean, we can know the radius because
and again, I don't want to sound like I'm hiding the ball here. I just want to make sure I'm giving you accurate information. So
sure. Okay.
I'll come back to that.
Let others ask questions or other questions.
Okay, David.
If I could finish on the delivery safety question, there's a couple other points I'd like to address. We've kept the e-bike speed capped at 20 miles per hour. We give safety training to the couriers. It's a big part of the operations. And we are ongoing, actually, I'm looking at my notes. I apologize. It's a 1 mile radius actually from our Dashmart location. So that 15-minute delivery, it may fluctuate depending on the density, but it's essentially a mile radius from the Dashmart. Yeah.
And that's a New York City radius. Like it would be different in other places.
It's
Okay,
going to be different. Yeah. And for example, in a Dashmart in Omaha, they're all going to be probably done from a vehicle and not from a bicycle. So it's
Right.
different delivery radiuses. But again, I think the fundamental premise is we need to be able to do this safely, and we need to, deliver on a commitment that's real.
Okay.
And believe it or not, 15 minutes can be done. Now, on the competitive environment, I think that's a great question. I cannot speak to my competitors' business practices. I can say, though, that Dashmart is.
Tony, I'm sorry for 1 second. Dale, should we ask all the questions about the deliveries before we move to the competitive environment? Does that make sense? I'm sure other people have, more detailed questions. I mean, your call, but I just wanted to put it out.
Well, I'm just going to let Tony finish the general statement about the competitive environment, and then I'll go to questions from the committee.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, DoorDash has the scale in order to come into this environment, I think, operate safely and deliver a superior product. So I do believe the market is going to find a path forward. And as with a lot of new services, there will be some survivors and some that don't quite make it. Now, we're not going to enter into this market and do so in a manner that jeopardizes safety or our long-term reputation or the reputation of DoorDash in general. So I can say that we realize we're going to be in a competitive environment and that we will be able to stay by offering a superior product and doing so safely and being a good community partner. So it's a great question, and I think one that people are asking all over the country and frankly all over the world. At the end of the day, it's a service that people want, and we believe it's something that can be done in a sustainable and safe manner.
Okay, thanks, Tony. All right, I'm going to go. We might circle back to that, but I'm going to go to David and then Viren.
Hi, Tony. Thank you for coming. I have several questions. What exactly is the safety training for your employees? Maybe you can send us a copy of what you train them. How do you screen your employees? And also, how are they paid? And how are they paid? And the scale that they're paid at? And do they get health benefits? What other type of benefits are you giving them so that they're not relying on the city and state for benefits and stuff like that? How does it work? But specifically, I'd like to see your safety plan and what type of screening you do, because some of them might have bad histories.
Sure. Let me address all those questions, and thank you for those. I think they're excellent questions. That I can provide an overview of the safety training, and for purposes of time, can send something in that just kind of walks through. It has to do with safe operations of the bikes, interacting with the customers in a safe manner, et cetera. The employees do undergo a background check, and they must clear that background check in order to provide services. And you'll notice I am saying employees. You may have heard a lot of conversations around delivery, and DoorDash actually does most of our restaurant deliveries through an independent contractor model. For the city of New York and for Dashmarts, we have made a decision to use employees. We are using, so every one of the Dashmart couriers and work for DashCore, which is a subsidiary of Dashmart. And so these are full-time employees who are making these deliveries with benefits, hourly wage, and they keep 100% of their tips. So what we love about this model is that it does provide a lot of earnings opportunities for people. If they want to be on the platform and do deliveries and have the flexibility to maybe they're a student or they're a mom looking for extra hours or whatever their scenario is, if they want the flexibility, they have the opportunity to go on the app and work as an independent contractor and earn in the city of New York between $33 to $36 per active hour. If you want to be an employee, we've created the opportunities through Dashmarts to actually be a full-time paid employee. The reason we went this route, I think, is because the type of delivery that needs to be done through Dashmart for grocery, we need people that are available, and we need more predictability. And so the employment model allows us to do that. I think that also allows us to do it more safely. Although it's the criteria for delivery, regardless, I think we're always trying to hit those safety marks. But having that Dasher pool, the couriers that are actually employees of ours in the Dashmarts is a big step. And it's the first time we've done this anywhere in the country, and we're learning a lot from that.
What is the pay for the employees?
The starting pay is $15 per hour, and the employees keep 100% of their tips. And I was just asking our team earlier, we're too early in the process now to know what the tips are. But based on what we've seen in food delivery, they can be pretty significant and can be as much as the actual hourly rate. But I don't want to misrepresent what they are, but they do keep 100% of the tips.
And what are the benefits? And do you provide them the bicycle, or they have their own bicycles?
We provide them with the bicycles, and I can get you the exact specifics of the benefits, but they're the typical health benefits that you would see from an employer of our size.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. I'm just going to quickly, just some housekeeping. Janine, are you able to bring over Sarah?
Yes, is she in the attendees?
I see her. I saw her
Yes.
in a. Okay.
Okay, let me bring her over.
Great. Sarah is a board member. She's actually, this is her last meeting because I believe she's moving out of the district. So there was a little mix up, but she's going to be joining us as a board member tonight. In the meantime,
if I may, I got a little bit more information on the Dash Core offering. So
sure.
the benefits that the employees have, we're contributing to medical, dental, and vision insurance. We offer employee assistance, flexible spending account, health savings account, basic life, accidental death and dismemberment, voluntary life, disability insurance, adoption assistance, commuter benefit, training and development, and marketplace perks at work. So discounts through marketplace. So it's a pretty extensive list of benefits.
It's pretty robust benefits. Welcome, Sarah. Sorry for the mix up. I'm going to go next to Viren and then Tina.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks, Tony, for coming in. I think you answered a bunch of questions already for me. Few questions for you. Number one, is the mode of transport strictly e-bikes, or is it some other modes as well? In other words, are you just using e-bikes? Are you using paddle bikes? Are you also considering other vehicles for deliveries?
At this point, we're doing 100% of the deliveries with e-bikes, and they're e-bikes that we offer to the employees. I do think we're early in the process, and we're going to explore what makes the most sense for that particular neighborhood and for that particular pool of couriers. So we're still learning from that, but right now they're done with the e-bikes.
So just if I could tag onto your question, Viren, are the delivery folks they're on an e-bike and they have like a big backpack on their back, or is there a cart?
There's a crate that's on the back of the e-bike.
Okay.
And so it's essentially above the rear tire. So
so
typically the orders will be able to fit in that. If it exceeds that, we'll either do 2 deliveries or have two.
Okay, so it's 100% e-bike fleet with crates. Okay, go ahead, Viren.
Yeah, so the second part of the question is that you said it could change, right? So if it does change, you will promise to come back and speak to us?
Oh, absolutely. And by saying that, I didn't mean to imply that there is anything in the works. But again, with this business, that it may make sense if there's a delivery that's a block down. Does it make more sense? Is it easier for the driver to hop on a regular bike? There's no plans at this point, and I think we're for the city, we're really committed to the e-bike model. But we will definitely come back if that changes.
Okay, the other question I have is, and going back to the safety issue that you just answered, partly with David's question. Safety of employees is one part of it. The safety of pedestrians is the other part of it. So what kind of sort of, I don't know exactly what you call it, what kind of rule book do you have in place for safety of employees themselves? Mm-hmm. Because you're actually putting them on an e-bike and you're taking the upper limit of the speed, which is 25 miles an hour. Are you willing to sort of reduce it a bit because we're talking about the community folks and senior citizens walking around, crossing the bike paths and whatever have you. And it's sometimes even some of your folks riding on the sidewalk. You know, those kind of situations do come about, and we hear, in fact, we see more often than not.
Yep.
Could you sort of speak to that?
The bikes themselves are capped at 20 miles per hour, so they won't exceed 20 miles per hour. The couriers are given training at the beginning of their employment on safe operations, you know, where to operate the e-bikes, where not to operate the e-bikes. And of course, if they commit any transgressions along those lines, there's a process for us to address it. So the bottom line is we want to make sure that they're operating in a safe manner. And if they're not, we'll take appropriate steps. So, you know, it has been fascinating to watch as deliveries become more prevalent, that there are a lot more vehicles on the road. So I do think that's an issue that we do take seriously, and we're learning a lot about it. But if the safe operation of those vehicles is very important to us, of the bikes is incredibly important to us.
Okay, well, just not to press too much on this, but I ride my bicycle all the time, every single day practically, and I go up to 18 miles an hour, and that's pretty fast, right? So I think you really need to sort of weigh on what speed is too much for considering the kind of district Chelsea and House Kitchen both are, because this is a sort of walking district, right? People walk around, people live and work in the same neighborhood more often than not, majority of us. So I think those considerations should play out differently. So I'm hoping that you would sort of remain open to study this whole notion of what speed is the right speed.
Thank you for that input. And I think those are the kinds of things that we'll take back to the business, and at whatever cadence you believe is the most helpful, we can come back with updates as well. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Viren. Okay, I'm going to go to Tina.
Hi. I have to also express my concerns about safety, and quite frankly, I don't know. Well, I think it's equal. I was going to say, I don't know who I'm more concerned about, the pedestrian on the street or your employee, but the fact that an incentive is in place that the employee get to the destination within 15 minutes just gets me extremely nervous, because I've always tried to be a great employee, and I know I would try as hard as I could to be the perfect employee and get everywhere within 15 minutes. So I worry about my twin who is going to be on that bike. Have you done any testing with testing, taking into consideration these factors, as well as taking in consideration it's now COVID? And I can tell you some buildings I visit, you can stand in an elevator for 5 to 10 minutes these days because only 2 people are allowed in the elevator. And then going back to what you provide to ensure safety, sorry if I'm asking too many questions, but do you also provide reflective gear, phone mounts, helmets, that sort of safety equipment for the employee?
Those are good questions, Tina. And also, Tony, just to dovetail on one of Tina's questions, can you tell us your hours of delivery operations?
Let me find out the exact hours. They vary a little bit by location, but answering the questions around safety, let me address those quickly. The couriers are provided with reflective vests and helmets, and it can given safety training. There is, when you say incentive, as Nelson, I want to be clear that they're not financially incentivized to hit the 15-minute mark. It's our goal to provide that experience, but there are no way, penalized, docked, or any other fashion if that 15-minute mark isn't met. We understand that there are a lot of uncontrollables. We do try to create the delivery radius so that we can effectuate a safe delivery within that, but we understand there might be circumstances that occur, like the one you described, waiting for an elevator. So that is very important that the dashers themselves, the couriers themselves, there's no consequence for a late delivery. We want to provide that service. Now, I do understand a good employee wants to be a good employee, but we do stress that more important than that 15-minute window is effectuating a safe delivery. I will have to get back to you on the exact hours. I do believe it's 8, begins at 8 a.m. I know that because I was at the Dashmart this morning at 8 a.m. and we were doing deliveries. And it goes into the evening. I want to say maybe 10 p.m., but let me give you an exact hour for that, please.
Okay. I'm going to go to Christine, then Brett, then Rob, but I will ask all of my committee members, if questions have been asked and answered already, let's not repeat them. Just if there's something new, if it's a new question or a new comment, please go right ahead. Christine.
Yes, so thank you for coming and briefing us. I was puzzled by something. When is the 15 minutes starting? Is it when I am on the phone and, calling and say, I want this, and now the 15 minutes clock starts there or not?
Or on the computer?
Yeah, so the order is done through either the app on your phone or through the computer, the website. The delivery, as soon as you click send, the delivery shows up at a computer screen inside the Dashmart. And then we have employees there who see it immediately, and then they begin to get the groceries. The way the Dashmarts are laid out, they're laid out very logically so that we call it a pick, can be done pretty quickly.
So essentially,
and then almost instantaneous.
Right. So essentially, the 15 minutes includes the picking up of the groceries. So it's really less than 15 minutes for the delivery people to have to go and deliver, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
So how much time typically would take inside the store to pick up the stuff?
Again, I would want to get accurate numbers to you, but it's a minute or two, depending on the size of the order. The way it's laid out is the computer is right there. The pickers see the order, they go into the rows, and then
so you get my point. My point is that
it's not 15 minutes from door to door. It's probably closer to 12.
It's like it's even less than 15 minutes, and I think this 15 minutes this advertised 15 minutes is really a concern of ours. I think it would be better to say we'll get it as soon as possible, safely, but not say 15 minutes. This advertisement is not good. Where are the bicycle parked?
Currently the bicycles are parked inside the Dashmart and right next to the front door. So at any given time, depending on the Dashmart location, there's a handful of.
That's true for the employees and the consultants and the contractors.
The contractors now they're not doing deliveries for Dashmart. The independent contractors would be doing deliveries for restaurants, and they own their vehicle.
Okay. All right, got it. And then I have one more question about this subject, which is puzzling me, is that when you are working with the bodegas and the bodegas have the platform, right? Who is doing the pickup and the delivery?
So under that model, what we do is we work with the bodega, and if they want to have, for example, if they want to be on the DoorDash app, and this is getting back to kind of the restaurant delivery, if they have hot food that they want to have delivered, that can be done through the app. If they want to partner with us so that we actually help create their own presence on the web, which is something a lot of them are having interest in, and may not have the technical expertise, we will help them create that access point to the web, and then we fulfill that back end. So we use our computers and our servers to get the order from the customer, and then we send it to the bodega, and then we work with our independent contracting partners to actually do the delivery. So the bodega itself does not actually have to pay for a separate delivery driver. And that's really,
but the delivery person has to go to the bodega first and then pick it up, right?
Correct.
They are not on site. So that's another delay into the whole 15-minute story.
Now, those are not 15-minute deliveries. So our
traditional,
our traditional DoorDash food deliveries, you'll see.
All right.
You'll see, 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 see an estimated time, but because we are working with, independent contractors in various radiuses, it's.
So on the Chelsea store, what is the proportion of employees versus delivery employees versus delivery contractors?
All of the deliveries are done by Dash Core employees, who are essentially DoorDash employees. So none are done by
None of them are contractors. Okay. And then finally, so we all talked a lot about the front of the store and the desire of having more light coming through. I mean, the stores in New York City, the stores are in fact responsible for lighting the sidewalk, right? There is no pedestrian lighting in the city. So what are you doing in your store to, provide that service and in a sense not be a black front?
I think that is a great question, and we've begun to raise these issues with the business and help create the best possible experience. So we do not want to be a quote unquote dark store with that image of the windows painted over and kind of this nondescript window. We're really trying to figure out what is that best look. And I think part of that process is soliciting feedback from the community board, talking to other people, but we really do want that experience to be positive. Ultimately, you can have that delivery brought to you, or if you just want to pick it up, you can actually go into the location. So we want to make sure it's as pleasing as possible as well, just strictly from a.
Well, I think having the transparency and the light coming on the sidewalk is a very, very important part of your community integration. And so if you want to be part of the community, you need to have like a transparent shop window, or as much transparent as possible, and so that there is light coming out. There is, if somebody feels that they are not safe, they can come in. The whole sense of safety on the street is very dependent on the light coming from the stores. And so I would suggest to our, that you really work on that and we improve on that tremendously.
Thank you for that feedback. It's incredibly.
On the point about the pickups, what would you say? I know Chelsea hasn't been in operation that long, but what would you say in terms of percentage? Are like 90% of the deliveries of the orders delivered and 10% picked up, or is it a higher number of deliveries versus pickups?
It's definitely a higher number of deliveries versus pickups. At this stage, I don't think we have the data yet. I can see what I can get from the business, but I say right now
it's interesting to see if it changes with seasons and COVID easing up. Okay, I'm going to go to Brett.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and for your time. I just have 3 questions. First question is, do the people who are doing deliveries while employed for you or contracted, do they have something for your company that's identified on them and on their bicycle? So if there's any incident, it's understood that they are at that moment working for you, for your company. Second question is, if anyone doing delivery does have a moving violation and they do get a ticket, which happens like once every year or two, but if it happens, is the delivery person responsible for those tickets, or is that something that your company is responsible, will take on cover the cost of the ticket? And the third question is, if there is some sort of a crash, some kind of an incident where somebody doing a delivery is liable, are they responsible for the damages? Is that on them, or do you guys have insurance against that? Is that something that you cover?
They are fully insured, and it's something that we cover, and it's not something that would be the responsibility of the driver, of the courier. The DoorDash couriers do wear uniforms, and it does have a DoorDash designation on it. I am not aware if the bikes do have the designation, but it is, when they're under operation, it is visible that the driver is with DoorDash. So I'll have to get back to you on the bikes. I don't know that. On the tickets, I do believe, again, that we are covering those tickets, but let me make sure that I get you an accurate answer to that, and I'll come back to the board with that. But
Okay. Thanks, Tony. Okay, I'm going to go to Rob and then to Jesse.
Hey, thank you for being here and doing this with us. Few questions for you. One, are there facilities for your employees to use for bathroom? And what is your ruling for bathroom breaks for the employees?
100%. There are bathrooms at the Dashmart locations. And, this has been one of our learnings over the past few years, and something actually that we've worked with our merchant partners with. There's a new law going into effect that requires access to bathrooms for all delivery drivers at restaurants. So separate from your question, but we are sensitive to the fact that we do need to provide the bathroom access. And certainly bathroom breaks are part of the normal workday, much as an employee would have at an office. So if the courier is not in the process of actually doing a delivery, they're usually inside the Dashmart, and the bathrooms are right there. So there's probably a world in which there's constant flow of delivery, but of course we're going to keep and manage their individual time so that there are adequate breaks.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Tony.
I appreciate. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. The next question is,
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
do you have management, and then you've got people who fulfill the orders, and then you've got the couriers, or do the couriers come in and they load up what they need for that order and they deliver it as well?
The couriers are in the front of the Dashmart, and then there are employees who are in kind of the area where the food is. So they get the order and it shows up on the computer, and then they have essentially a tablet. They'll go and conduct the pick, which is getting the groceries, put them into the delivery container, take them to the front where the delivery driver, where the courier picks it up for delivery, or if it were somebody who was picking it up, they would pick it up at the front. So it's done at two different locations, two different people.
Okay, cool. Correct me. This is 25th between 7th and 8th, correct?
I believe so. 125, I believe it's between.
No, it's between 6 and 7.
6 and 7.
6 and 7. Yes.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
152, Rob.
Okay, got it. Sorry, I wasn't sure about which block. The other thing is, if people want to, you have delivery and then you've got pickup. What about for people who want to do walk-ins? Will you do walk-ins without the app or no?
At this time, we don't have that capability, but I think that's something that we would explore, like have a interface at the front of the store. That is a great question.
Sort of kind of like they can order on site, they could get it together and just give it to them. What is the average, are we talking like 15 items or 10 items or less, the average of what the couriers are delivering?
It's the exact data, and I just have to say this, is the delivery is a little bit proprietary, but it is usually a handful of items. It's going to be lettuce, eggs, maybe aspirin, maybe soda, maybe water. And it's usually in that, it's usually in that amount that could fit into a traditional bag. This is really not meant as a replacement for the trip to the grocery store. It's last minute convenience, last minute grocery, stuff that you've kind of forgotten or you may have run out of. And part of the quick service is that it's, oh gosh, I just went to the store and I forgot to get eggs, or I forgot to get, such and such. Or, hey, I'm going to stay home tonight. I want to cook. I need to get a handful of things.
Okay, got it. Last thing, and I'm sorry, Dale, I'm reiterating what Christine said, but having the storefront look like a storefront and not have like the windows blacked out makes a huge difference in the neighborhood. Instead of, businesses looking like they're shuttered, it looking like it's inviting, like, hey, I want to go in. Ooh, I forgot. I'm on my way home. I need this item or two. If I could just drop in, pick it up, and run off because I don't have a bodega near me. This would be something great. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, Jesse.
Thank you. I just have a few questions myself. One, just I thought Tina's questions about incentives for 15 minutes were really spot on, and I just want to follow up and just confirm that there's no sort of incentive compensation for, say, the number of deliveries per hour, and that the only way an employee would make more money because they delivered more in a certain given amount of time is just because they could potentially receive more tips. But there's nothing that DoorDash itself is doing to promote speed within within a certain amount of time.
That's correct. And I think if I'm a courier myself, I would want more deliveries than fewer, but I'd also want to be able to do them in a safe way. The tips is a big part of what pulls people to the work. So I do think that they are cognizant, but if there's a incentive, it's built into the notion that, hey, I really want to get out there. I want to work and generate, not only my hourly wage, but also tips. But again, they have to be doing that in a safe manner.
Okay. Second question would just be in terms of complaints tracking. If I'm hit, by a DoorDash delivery person, easily identifiable, appreciate that. Is there a way a quick and easy way to notify DoorDash, and does DoorDash have a complaints monitoring system that they can follow up on and confirm that their delivery, employees are being responsible on the road, and to follow up on those complaints, basically?
Yeah, I've been with DoorDash for going on 2 years now, and one of the things that I've really enjoyed about the company is that there is a genuine commitment to the customer experience and to customer service. And we have a 24-hour trust and safety team that is in place to investigate complaints. So if something happens of consequence, it is reported, and it's reported to DoorDash. We will instantly route that to our trust and safety team. They are a network of professionals, a lot of them from law enforcement, but they have connections and develop and understanding of that world. Will pull together the right team, and we'll make sure that we manage it. So the DoorDash is here to stay, and we've really built the business largely around this notion that we want to be the best possible experience for the merchant, for the customer, and frankly for either the dasher, delivery driver, or the courier. So things like customer service, 24-hour customer service. If it's a service issue, customer service will address it. And we have several thousand, believe it or not, customer service agents located around the world who help man phones and address customer complaints or respond to emails. If it elevates to that degree to where it's a serious incident, then we bring in our trust and safety team, and they address that, and they bring the right members of the team.
Great. I appreciate that answer. Thanks so much. Two quick other ones, and then I'll be done. One, just in terms of delivery packaging, this is an issue for all types of deliveries, right? Boxes pile up on streets, and are these easily identifiable as recyclable? I assume they are coming in paper bags. I'm not entirely sure. Or boxes that went for larger items. Are they easy to break down, clear that they should be recycled? I don't know if you can speak on that.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, because I do think this is an opportunity for us. We are, of course, complying with New York City, New York State law on packaging delivery. The business itself is actively exploring ways in which we can minimize product waste. So in the case of grocery delivery, we can minimize that to an extent, but you also don't want to be breaking down, a lettuce container, for example. We're at the front end of learning more about that, and we have a team, a social impact team, that is really looking at sustainability offerings. And I wouldn't be surprised if we roll out some of these in the Dashmarts. But I think anything we can do to address that is good for the community, but it's also good for business.
Yeah, I mean, just to buttress that point, I mean, I ordered from one of your competitors for the first time a few weeks ago because I had COVID and I couldn't leave my apartment. And what showed up was, a giant unfilled box filled with basically confetti that was, and it was really upsetting to just like pure waste for that. I would never, had I gone into the bodega myself to make these purchases, I would never have ended up with all of this unnecessary paper and cardboard. So definitely something to think about just as a business, as a business decision. And then real quick, and this is a little bit less of the purview of this committee, but I do just want to capture, because I do think it's important for the board and for the community, are the bodegas paying any fees to participate in your program? Are there any costs associated with these online services that you help provide them? And then I'll have a follow-up to that based on the answer to that question.
I want to make sure I have an informed response, because there's a lot of different programs that we're doing with the bodegas. Some we're paying for, some are traditional services that we offer to all of our merchant partners. And within the range of services that we offer all of our merchant partners, there is a number of types of services that you can get. And the fee in instances where we have a commercial relationship with a merchant is dependent upon the type of service that we're providing. So, if there is marketing involved, if there is, specific needs that platform has, the commission might be a little bit higher. If they just want to be on our platform, use their existing, website, we'll power that, and then we'll have a much lower commission.
Okay.
Sounds like I'm sorry. It sounds like there are tiered options. It's like depending on whether you're doing their e-commerce build out, depending on whether you're doing their fulfillment, depending on whether you're doing their marketing.
So I think my response to this, and this is just a comment, and with what you will, but to me, I do think this is an existential. Your business model is an existential crisis for bodegas. It is probably the death knell for bodegas. For me, the appearance of you charging them fees to use their service honestly looks more like a shakedown than anything else, because it's like, listen, you're definitely going out of business unless you use us. I actually am really disappointed to hear that about these that you're actually extracting more from the bodegas rather than actually partnering with them and trying to help them survive.
I have to say that it struck me the same way, Jesse.
Yeah. So that's my takeaway. I don't, again, not really the purview of this committee, so I don't necessarily know if you need to address that. It is a thought that I have and a concern that I have, and it could come up for the fuller board. But again, thank you for your time.
No, and thank you for raising that, Jesse. And Dale, to the extent anybody has similar concerns, I want to make sure that we're addressing that adequately, because it is a big indictment, and it is something I think is worth a conversation around. I can tell you we're partnering a lot with the bodegas in a way that is to help bodegas survive, to give them training, to do what we can. There is a service that we're offering that's providing incremental business to them. And we're doing it in a manner that we want to make as affordable as possible and sustainable as possible. So, but my only request is that we have an opportunity to maybe go into the details of that. Allow me maybe one-on-one to explore in more detail so that there is an understanding, because I do think I want you to have the benefit of the full understanding of the business model. And then with that, we would love feedback, but so I would really
I think that would be appreciated.
Follow up with you if I can.
Yeah, I do.
Sounds a little bit like you're helping them survive your own business model. But I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on. Just a little. Okay. Rob, did you have a double dip, or should we move on to the public?
Sorry about that, Dale. Go ahead. Move on to the public.
Okay, I'm going to call on Tina and then Adam.
Okay, I'm bringing them over right now.
Thanks, Janine.
You're welcome.
Hello, Tina. Tina is a resident of Chelsea and a friend of this committee. Here she is. Hi, Tina.
On
a board.
A little delay there. Sorry about that. I live around the corner, and I just need some clarity, because we have right across the street between 7th and 8th, on the corner of 7th, 25th Street, we have many bicycles and delivery folk from Amazon. if I'm standing on the corner, if I'm standing on the sidewalk, what am I seeing? Where are the bicycles or whatever the transportation vehicles? How many are they? How are they arranged? How many will there be? What is the point of contact between?
Tina, it was established that the bicycles for the Chelsea location are kept indoors.
Yeah, I'm not satisfied with that response. I don't know what that means. I see a lot of different configurations of this when I walk around the city. I need to know exactly, this is the transportation committee. As a resident, I need to know exactly what is going on the sidewalk. I want to know how many people, how does it get transported, this stuff from inside to outside. We already have like a 3-ring circus across the street at Amazon. They try to contain it. It does not follow any, there's no fulfillment of the plan that the city, drafted out for a manageable way of dealing with this stuff. So I need to know exactly what I'm going to see.
What you will see is what I saw this morning. It's a storefront. It's 2 front doors, and on occasion bikes will come in and out of the front door.
How big are the doors? How can the bikes go in and out across the sidewalk?
The doors are open, and then they walk them across the sidewalk onto the street.
Okay, these and how large are these? They're going in and out across the sidewalk from the inside the store to the street.
How large are they?
Yeah.
Normal size bicycles.
They're just bicycles, and they're going in and out, in and out. And how are you managing the pedestrian traffic?
So far, it hasn't been an issue. And every time they enter or exit, they look left and right and make sure that nobody's coming, and they safely exit onto the street.
What is the volume? How many bicycles come and go every day? You must have data on that.
There is early data on that, and some of it's proprietary, but it's not a disruptive amount. I know that's the subjective term, but it's not a constant flow, but we do want to make, there will be bikes coming in and out. I don't have a better answer than that, but
it seems to me that the more the better for your business model. The more activity, the better. For the pedestrian, the more activity, the more disruption. Maybe
I can tag on one question that helps to clarify this. How many operators are working out of Chelsea? Like how many individual delivery people?
I'll have to get the exact number, but any given time, there's probably 6 to 10 delivery workers, at least at this stage in the business.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned about when you're scaling up, because I love the energy and all the rest of that, but I am concerned about the impact it's having on pedestrians.
Fair, absolutely. Do you have any more questions, Tina? Otherwise, I'll move on to Adam.
No, I think if you would be so kind as maybe to furnish the committee with this information later on down the line, maybe within the month, about a little more clarity on that. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Adam.
Hi, thank you for your time. What I'm curious about is, obviously, these grocery couriers are like really high users of our roads and our bike lanes and infrastructure, and they obviously face a lot of danger. We've seen numerous deaths of delivery workers in the past year, nothing related to DoorDash specifically, but it's certainly a risk that they face. I'm curious if DoorDash has any involvement or plans to be at all involved in advocating for the expansion of bike lanes, adding protection to existing bike lanes, and that kind of infrastructure solutions to the risks that we're all talking about that these workers are facing.
This is a great question, and thank you for that. We have been doing a lot of work around that, and whether it be at the federal level, working with national partners on trying to find ways to get additional federal funding, which is always a tall order. We've been in partnership with the League of American Bicycles on advocacy efforts and fronts. One of the exciting things I think that Sasha, who's our new lead in New York City, and our team will have is partnering with the Adams administration on ways to address bicycle safety, because I do think we've seen an uptick in incidents, and it's all tied to the fact that customers have demanded and are like these types of services. So it's obviously in our benefits and the benefit of our employees to have safer streets, and we would certainly support those efforts and have started to do so and look forward to doing more of that.
Thanks for your question, Adam. Do you have another question, or I'll move on to Melody?
Hi.
Melody.
Hi, nice to see you. Tony, I'm a member of Families for Safe Streets. We're people who lost relatives to car crashes, and I actually couldn't live with myself if I didn't speak up. My main concern is that while you call your workers employees, their speed's limited 20 miles an hour. The fact is, the more tips they make, the more money they take home. And in an office, the more sales you make, all the better. But the streets are much more dangerous. And I've been to too many deliverista memorials. Frankly, I don't like this business model, and neither do the deliveristas. I've heard them talk about these 15-minute deliveries. To ask someone to risk their life to deliver an apple is deeply unfair and exploitive, and to build a business on this population is unconscionable. I'm sorry I can't be more positive about your request. I'm glad you're working for bicycle safety, but this horrifies me.
Thanks, Melody.
Thank you, Melody. If I could just say, thank you for the important work that you're doing. I can tell you we've done a lot of outreach with the deliveristas. We want to be a good faith partner with the issues that they have surfaced. We're at the front end of that relationship, and I think there's a lot more we can learn. But I do want to assure you that it's our strongest commitment to safe operations. And and again, that may not satisfy your concerns, but it's something that we think about constantly, and we do want to work with groups like the deliveristas and others to make sure that we're hearing from everybody in that regard. So thank you for that.
Janine, do we have any more questions from public members?
Yeah, we had Layla had her hand up. She's here.
Oh, Layla, yes. Hello, Layla. Layla is our neighbor.
Hi, exactly. I'm the neighbor. I'm coming as the neighbor. Thank you so much to the Transportation Committee of CB4. As you know, this particular site is actually very close to CB5. So I'm very appreciative that you're taking a very deep and thorough look at this activity. We share a number of the concerns that have been expressed tonight, and wanted to thank this committee for taking a deep and thorough look. The radius of this operation, encapsulates a big swath of CB5, and we're very concerned about all these issues that have been expressed. Safety is paramount, and we feel that I personally am not totally satisfied with the answers that were given by the applicant, and I trust that the committee will put some language into any of the recommendations to address these concerns. So, just wanted to show my support for the great work that you guys are doing.
And given that this particular location's radius falls within your district, we should definitely, have a, talk in a coordinated way.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And, I will make sure that the chair of the Transportation Committee, E.J. Kalafarsky, is looped in. I was actually stopping by for the next item that has to do with through running, but, felt that, I should just chime in very quickly on this particular one. So thank you.
We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Layla. And if there's anything that we certainly want to meet with you and address your concerns as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thanks.
Janine, are there any other public speakers?
No, I just see David's hand.
Yeah, I want to double dip again. I apologize. What is your fire safety plan, especially if those electric bikes are being stored overnight? Because I work for the fire department, we've had problems with electric bikes and the recharging of batteries. What is your procedure? How do you plan to handle that?
This is an excellent question, and I'm glad you raised it. And it's one of the areas that we're looking at now, and we're going to be reaching out to the city to get some input. I do think we need to understand the issue that you identified. And we will, take the necessary steps. We want to run a safe operation, and we want to make sure that the equipment is safe, and we're doing everything possible. So that concern, I think, is something that we want to look at, and we are in the process of doing so. And to the extent you want to be a stakeholder in that conversation, we would welcome that.
You might need to consult your insurance companies, because if you're not complying and something does happen, they'll revoke your policy.
Thanks, David. Okay. I think we've been pretty thorough. We've thoroughly grilled Tony. We appreciate you coming here for this grilling. And I think if I can summarize real quick, we have some fundamental concerns about the business model. We have some fundamental concerns about the competitive environment that we're looking at in the district. We have some, commendations on the good faith efforts of your particular company in addressing some of these concerns, although the overarching concerns are paramount. And do we have from one, and there is no, just to be clear, there is no application there. This is a discussion, and it's just Tony was good enough to come and address our questions. So there is no specific application that we're considering. We're just information gathering and looking to build a relationship with an operator within the district. Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, if I may, I think to me, the business model, the 15 minutes remains a major problem. And then opening the front, I think we could task Tony to come back with proposal around, opening the front and how the light goes through and the walk-in, etc. And maybe showing us a plan for reaching out to bodegas in the district and really show us what is the plan, maybe a plan which is a little more generous, like Jesse says, and which really bring the bodegas in the fold as far as getting delivery business. And this would be my 3 items. I'd love them to remove the 15 minutes from all their advertisement. I don't think they need it. It's like, Jiffy Lube, 15 minutes. I don't know that you are getting an image of something of quality. You are really getting an image of quick and dirty. And so I don't think you need the 15 minutes to do a good business. And you can do it. So those 3 things would be my ask to put in a letter, and as a challenge to them.
And the concern about the 15-minute delivery window would be industry-wide, not just to this particular operator.
Yeah, but right now I'm talking to one group, and they seem to want to do a good job, and I think they are doing a good job on a lot of levels. I was pleased with a lot of answers, so I'm happy with that. But these are the 3 items which, in my mind, could get some improvements.
I'll go to Viren and then to Blake.
Okay, just to echo what Christine just said, I think it's an exploitative model, and that's something that we really have to take into account, because we're probably going to have many more such applications as we move into this space.
Well, again, there's no
applications.
There's no application.
No, I don't mean right now. I'm saying there would be, moving forward, there'll be many more situations like these when we would be asked to consider some applications or some form of conversation with these companies. So I think that's one fundamental point that we want to raise in this letter. The second thing that I want to add to the list that Christine just provided: safety of employees, safety of the pedestrians, and well-being of everybody. So that's something that is fundamental to any such operations. So I think that's something that we want to put right at the top. And then everything else is equally important. But I think my personal concern would be safety for both, the community as well as the employees.
Thanks, Viren. Blake.
Yeah, thank you. I would suggest that we would send a letter that's outside of DoorDash, because I feel like we're kind of standing in the way of consumer demand in a way. DoorDash is just, I think, happens to be well positioned in this space, whereas, they also are the only one that actually sent someone to talk to us. So I'm a little worried about, the fact that we probably will be particularly critical while, the partner that, I do think that DoorDash probably is one of the leaders, particularly with the employee status of the workers here and just the fact that they were willing to engage. So I'm wondering if, we just send a letter that's more about, 15-minute delivery and just the concerns that we have about using storefronts for delivery in general without necessarily singling out a particular partner.
So you would say to city council, for instance?
Yeah, I think so. Here are some considerations for, or the things that we need to be considered when, a delivery company, whether or not it's 15-minute, I think, is entering a neighborhood.
Yeah, and city council, as many of us know, city council passed a raft of legislation that takes effect this year that addresses some of these issues in their legislation. So.
But so may I suggest a split, by approach? I think Blake is making a very good point of having a very public statement, but then we could have a separate letter, which is like more an administrative letter, follow up to our letter,
yes,
which goes to the specific action that we would like Tony and DoorDash to take as neighbors. They are our neighbors now, and we're telling them, look, could you work a little bit on that? And it's not a public letter; it's a letter that goes just to them and say we'd like your help on those things.
Yeah.
So that would be to a bifurcated message.
So it sounds like we're looking at an admin letter addressed
Right.
to DoorDash, thanking Tony for his participation in this conversation and addressing the concerns as well as the commendations that we have. And then a separate letter that's going to take a little more work because it's as you stated, Blake, this DoorDash is not the only operator,
right?
But we could begin a draft of that letter to City Council with the elected CC'd on our overarching concerns about the sector at large.
Yeah,
as they operate in our district.
I think that makes sense.
And certainly coordinate some of this with CB5 since this specific
Exactly.
operator. Yeah. Okay. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the admin and
Wait, Dale, one thing. I see Mike Noble has his hand up from the public.
Okay. Hi,
I'll
Mike.
just bring him over.
Oh, okay. Mike, you missed your turn.
Hello, Mike.
Okay, all chimed in. Just to follow up on something that David Warren brought up. First of all, I use the service. I think it's great. You can be in the middle of preparing a meal and say, "Oh my Lord, I'm missing one ingredient." And
garlic.
What's that?
Garlic.
Yeah, garlic. To be sure, it was parsley, as a matter of fact, Christine, parsley. So that comes at the end. In any event, it worked. All right. So I love the service. And you've got a competitor who's even closer to me called Fridge No More, which I'm sure you're aware of. And they're even quicker because they're 2 blocks closer to me. However, David brings up this point about exploding batteries and all, right? I wonder if you have a fire watch type person, a guard who's there 24, overnight to keep track of these charging batteries and just to watch over the establishment in general, I think it's important. You got to unplug the battery chargers, I think is the thing, right?
I don't know.
Well, I think that's how it happens, right?
So we could include that in the letter to the council, saying there is a general concern about battery exploding and the charging and having a comprehensive fire regulation to address those, right?
Yeah, I think that's
Firewatch is what it's called.
I think that would be part of both the admin letter and the general letter.
Okay.
When we list our concerns. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Okay. All those in favor, as stated, the two letters, admin and resolution to City Council ceasing the electeds. Any opposed? Any present not out? Sarah, were you in favor?
I'm in favor of the city council one. I'm present but not eligible on a DoorDash specific one.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I'm in.
Was somebody else mention their vote? Rob?
Yeah, that's me, Rob. I just voted.
Okay, I'm sorry you broke up for a minute, but you're in favor of both letters.
Correct.
Okay, great. All right.
Also, I think we should send a letter. We should CC the city economic development and the state economic development.
We can CC them with the resolution. Yeah.
Yeah, but not with the because it involves business and all that, and they're trying to help businesses get started. So when someone is contacting them, at least they could work with us so before they even open. At least we're on the radar.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we have our resolution, and we have our follow-up communication with Tony's group. Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming in on our terms and answering our questions. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time and look forward to working with you moving forward. Thank you so much.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel much better about the operation, by the way.
About this one operation, not
This
necessarily.
one operation, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you so much. We're going to move on. We have a presentation that's concerning the Penn Station, Moynihan Station. I know we've talked a lot about the development proposals above ground, but this is a proposal that, or a line of thinking that affects the transit infrastructure improvements. And we have Sanjeev Ramchandra, who approached us with his alternative or slightly different plan than we've seen before for through running operations at Penn Station, Moynihan Station. Oh, and I see, Sanjeev, you have a visual presentation that you've provided to Janine. Thank you very much and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, yes. So thank you for the invitation. I did provide the slides that you see here. And what I'm going to do is, for the sake of time and keep this sort of not get too bogged down technicalities, I'm going to talk. I'm not going to read every single word on all the slides, and then I'm going to just focus on the big picture items. There's some technical information on some of the slides. I'm not going to read those, but these slides should be available to your committee members and to the public when they link to your website, so they can read the slides on their own and go to the details and the graphs or the pictures in more detail. But I want to kind of go to the big picture and then answer any questions at the end, and then
perfect.
And so we'll keep it like that. Okay. So this is an alternative transit proposal upon completion of the Gateway project, and so you see some pictures there, New Jersey, New York, and some landmarks there. Next slide, please. And so this is one of two Trans Hudson proposals that I'm working on. So the left is this presentation, which is talking about Greater North Jersey. So if you're familiar with the New Jersey geography, right, you have the Palisades, and so the Gateway Tunnel, not only does it, and the existing tunnel, not only does it go underneath the Hudson River, but it goes underneath Eastern Hudson County, right? It goes underneath Eastern Hudson County and the Palisades. So it really bypasses this huge population center, which some people consider to be the New York's sixth unofficial borough. So it's kind of odd in that sense. But another proposal I'm working on the right, Eastern Hudson County, is a rapid transit one that would go into Jersey City and Hoboken and Weehawken. And just to give a quick teaser about this that you may find appealing, this proposal I'm working on, I mean, not on this presentation, but in the future, under development, is going to be a bridge over the Hudson River. And yes, I found a way to create a bridge without tearing down a bunch of buildings. And the bridge would carry a train, a rapid train, and bicycles and pedestrians only, no motor vehicles. And the train would connect from Secaucus Junction to the Midtown Port Authority bus terminal, the lower level, the basement of the original building, not underneath the building, but in the basement area. So Now I've already mapped out the corridor and the track, and very little, so you're not going to tear down any buildings, but again, that's a different presentation, but that's sort of a trailer to what's to come. Maybe by the end of this year, I might have that done, but anyways.
That's a big tease.
So if you're into bicycling, pedestrian, and having a nice bridge across the Hudson River between Hudson County and at Hudson Yards, actually, that's a great project there. So we'll kind of go with that. Okay. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is the introduction. So this is a plan to extend the LIRR, the Long Island Railroad, into Secaucus and the Meadowlands as high capacity transit to reduce congestion and to provide economic development. And so I used different planning concepts that many advocates have talked about over the years in different media channels. For example, Penn Station, New York through running, and then and modified, meaning that it's going to only use the LIRR as opposed to New Jersey Transit or other proposals that people have talked about. Secaucus Junction bypass flyover, so that's a modification to the Bergen Loop, and I'll talk about that later. The Meadowlands train tracks extension loop, and I'll mention that if you're familiar with the Meadowlands. And of course, removing Madison Square Garden Arena, because again, as many of you know, I mean, in my opinion, and I think most people agree, you just cannot have a real Penn Station while Madison Square Garden is there. Just the logistics are not there. And I like to use the phrase, putting lipstick on a pig. It's just not going to work unless the arena moves. But in my presentation, I'll talk about by removing the arena, that Madison Square Garden also benefits too. So we're not here to punish private business, but I'm going to show how they benefit as well as everyone else. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so for the Gateway program, I advocate to implement the current project items that's already listed, publicly available. So the Portal North Bridge, the Hudson Tunnels, of course, the new tunnel, that's going to Gateway Tunnel, and the tracks that connect the new Hudson Tunnel with Secaucus Junction. Now, what I say to cancel on future phases that are sort of tentatively out there, so cancel the Bergen Secaucus Loop, cancel the Penn Station South, which is the big controversy, the so-called Empire Station Complex, and of course cancel an expansion of Secaucus Junction itself. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so Hudson Tunnel flow adjustment. So in this picture, this is sort of the key takeaway. Is to sort of think differently than just having two redundant tunnels. So the bottom tunnel is the Gateway Tunnel. That's the tunnel where the New Jersey Transit trains would go in, and so that is there, and that's not going to change. But for the North River Tunnel, which is the existing tunnel, instead of having it go down into Newark like it does now, let's change the direction. Let's change the pipeline of the flow and have it go to the west. It'll go to the west, to or from the west. In this case, it'll go to what I call the new Secaucus West, but also to the Meadowlands. And it'll get, and so you'll see later on, it's going to talk about 3 different train lines. So the Hoboken train lines that normally go into Hoboken will connect with this LIRR service, and I'll talk about this a little bit later. So east-west direction as opposed to north-south. Okay, that's the big picture there. And as a result, the North River Tunnel will have LIRR going through. Amtrak trains will use either tunnel, but particularly during peak times, it can use the North River Tunnel so that more New Jersey Transit trains can get into Penn Station and get out of it during those time slots. And, I know, the whole peak hour might change because of the coronavirus, but there'll be a point where you're going to have peak hours at whatever time. And so then I say for LIRR, the 3 New Jersey train lines, Maine, Bergen County, Pasco Valley would connect with that. And then the existing New Jersey Transit train lines that go into Penn Station would be in the Gateway, be shifted over to the Gateway Tunnel. Which would be the case. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so Secaucus Junction bypass. So the important thing is sometimes people say, why not just have the trains? Why don't you just have people get off at Secaucus Junction? The people going toward Hoboken Terminal, that silver train line, which is basically 3 New Jersey Transit train lines, and also the Metro North train from upstate New York, from Rockland County and Orange County. Well, the problem is Secaucus Junction is set up where it's the last stop before Penn Station, so trains going toward Penn Station already filled up. You can't bring it. You can maybe bring a few people on, but you can't dump half the train from another train set and have them transfer, right? There's no capacity. And the second problem is with Secaucus Junction is it's a multi-level. It's not geared for transferring. In case you haven't been there, it's like multi-level platform. You're literally, if you're on the bottom floor, you have to go all the way to the very top, which is the mezzanine. They come all the way back down to the middle. So it's not designed for high capacity transfer. And of course, the stations cross at a 90-degree right angle. So, and of course, it's, you know, a lot of development around it. So you can't really, you know, so that's the dilemma. So I created a new station called Secaucus West, which, you know, I thought was kind of simple name there, that will accommodate the LIRR train to the geography, the turning radius, and the elevation change. Commuters will transfer at this new station, and it would reduce congestion. So instead of everybody going to Hoboken, because Hoboken's already packed, right? You got all these other New Jersey Transit train lines coming there, and you got the Path Line and the Hudson Bergen light rail. And of course, you know, Hoboken and Jersey City are rapidly growing. All the new skyscrapers and all that little, you know, they're trying to become New York basically as far as residential development. You know, the unofficial sixth borough, right? So, and of course, the running joke is that, you know, Jersey City wants to outpace Newark as New Jersey's largest city. So that's a little running joke between Jersey City and Newark. Anyways, so they're rapidly densifying and all this. This is, you know, you need more capacity. Okay, now commuters along this corridor. Now people will talk about the one-seat ride. I'm going to mention that later on. But travelers going into Hoboken Terminal on the Silver New Jersey train line, they're already transferring. They can't get into Penn Station directly because there's no direct way to get there. So since they're already transferring, I'm simply saying they can still transfer again, but this new station will be more seamless and a hell of a lot better than Secaucus Junction. And then, and as well as, I'll talk more about that later. So next slide, please. Okay, so now LIR New Jersey train track. So the trains coming into New Jersey with LIR are single level trains, not the locomotives, not the multi-level, just the trains that you see with LIR that pass through more or less through Nassau County and Queens area, you know. And LIR is sort of unique because it is both regional and long distance commuter rail, whereas New Jersey Transit is mostly long distance commuter rail. It would use the existing third rail. So the North River Tunnel, the existing tunnel has that third rail. In case many of you don't know, it was designed that way so that if there was a fire in Penn Station, the LIR trains can evacuate. And so that was there. And so that's part of a little neat. Now, no one ever uses it because LIR doesn't go into New Jersey, but it was designed to be robust in case there was a fire that the trains can evacuate. So that train, that line, that electrification is already there in the design. And I mentioned about third rail, and also hybrid batteries, but mostly it'll be third rail, and I'll talk about that later in the design part. And so now you see on the right side it's your basic map or a grid here. So your Penn Station, New York, Secaucus West to the Meadowlands. And so you have two different combinations. You can go Penn Station, Secaucus, Meadowlands, or you can go Penn Station, Secaucus, Meadowlands, and come back again. So they're not terminal stations, and I'm going to talk about the loop track. So they turn around. They don't reverse, so that saves time and energy. And also, not all the trains are going to go to the Meadowlands. Some will go just to Secaucus West and come back around again. And that's important. I'll talk about that later as far as making quick deposits and for trains going into Long Island. Okay, next slide, please. So the Meadowlands loop. So the dark blue is basically the existing track, and then the dashed blue is sort of the continuation to create a loop track, if you will. And then there's New Jersey Transit that also uses those track segments there. And so the idea would be the Meadowlands to be converted into a terminal. If it could have the third rail at the station to charge the battery, or eventually the whole thing will be third rail. And the LIR will replace New Jersey Transit as the primary provider. And so the idea here is we satisfy the NJT Innovation Challenge project, which would avoid creating those busways and all this. It would also, and I'm going to talk about a park and ride station as well. And it'll create a one-seat ride to the Meadowlands, creating a common market between New York City and the Meadowlands. And of course, MetLife Stadium will be better positioned for hosting the Super Bowl. And I'll add one other fact. As you all know, and I've read, I've been following up with the Port Authority project for the last few years and all the talks, and your community board and other people have been talking about, why don't you put a bus terminal in the Meadowlands? Why don't you create a train line? So this has been talked about for decades, right? The whole thing about there should be a train line in the Meadowlands coming into New York. So this is nothing new. And so the idea is creating that transit with buses and parking and that come to the Meadowlands along with the athletics facility. So again, this is sort of reinforcing what's been talked about for decades, not brand new information, but the challenge is how do you implement it, right? The implementation is the challenge. And so that's what my plan is about. Next slide, please. Okay, so now Madison Square Garden Arena relocation. So obviously the arena has to be relocated for this to work. So I justify economically how that would make sense. First of all, you'd want to relocate it, as you all know, because you want to remove the pillars that are in the station, and you need to have that so that the station doesn't cause problems at Penn Station. Now, the Meadowlands has enough space and for a modern arena. And again, let's look recently at the New York Islanders. They built a new arena in Nassau County with the Islanders, right, with UBS Arena. So again, and the LA Clippers is building a new arena. And I'm going to talk about this in another slide. That's being under construction. So this, you need a new arena. The MSG it's outdated, and you can't be competitive in the professional field without that. So the arena the cost can be offset by corporate naming rights. Again, UBS Arena. If you look at LA, the crypto arena, there's like hundreds of millions of dollars literally by naming it after a corporation, and that can go towards the cost of construction. In fact, when the Meadowlands built the Giants and Jets Stadium, that the MetLife Stadium, that was used towards the cost of the construction of the stadium, as you may remember 10, 20 years ago. So that's also there. And finally, look, Madison Square Garden already has venues in Manhattan with Radio City Music Hall and Beacon Theater. So this is not about removing them from Manhattan. They already have a presence, and they can keep their corporate offices. They'll likely keep their corporate offices in Manhattan and Midtown. So all this does is it diversifies the region while, the metropolitan area. Okay, so there's some teams there that talk about, all the teams that they used to play in the Meadowlands. They moved away, and you might say, well, why should you put a new team there? They moved away because there was no 1C train ride to Manhattan. They moved to Newark, they moved to Harrison, or they moved to Brooklyn. And so the teams here that are the professional teams that have 1C train rides are in the top three. So now by putting this there, now the Giants and Jets, along with the relocated Knicks and Rangers, will have a 1C train ride. And so you have these, the LIR would provide that, and it brings plausibility to relocating the arena, because if you have a 1C train ride, that makes it plausible. And finally, let's not forget the American Dream Shopping Entertainment Complex is there, and a lot of people from New York are going there as well. And so you have concerts and other things and other developments, and so all that makes economic sense. Okay, next slide, please. Metropolitan comparison. So again, I compared it with Los Angeles and New York City, and so you can kind of read the parallelisms of the two football stadiums in Inglewood, which is a suburb just west of Los Angeles, coincidentally just within almost the exact same distance, just under 12 miles. Okay, the Meadowlands is to the west of New York City. You got two football stadiums. You got a basketball versus basketball, hockey. You got the arena in the city itself, and then the Union Station versus Penn Station. And then I say here that LA just built a new stadium. They're building the new Clippers arena in red, and likewise, there's room in the Meadowlands for Madison Square Garden, and again, the direct train service there, and so forth. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, Secaucus West Complex, and this is sort of a picture of to the west. So here you see Secaucus Junction and Secaucus West, and what would have is the LIR would come in Secaucus West, and it would connect the three New Jersey Transit train lines that go to Hoboken. Those are the three lines, and it's comprised of a series. It's a three-dimensional model. It has like ramps, flowers, and viaduct structure. And so basically, Secaucus West is a high-capacity transit hub that allows for seamless transfers, and it's an alternative to going to Hoboken. So instead of having all those travelers coming all the way down to Hoboken, they can transfer Secaucus West and get into Manhattan through it'll be the existing tunnel, because the Gateway Tunnel will be for New Jersey Transit, but through the tunnel that's there. And likewise, if they want to go to Newark, they can transfer Secaucus Junction as opposed to Secaucus West. And the loop track is, and you'll see more about this later. It provides a one-way loop to go from the Penn Station to Secaucus West to drop off passengers and to pick them up, and so forth. So next slide, please. Okay, so at Penn Station, there's like a rough layout. On the right is your East River tunnels, and to the left, so your Gateway tunnels at the bottom, and the existing North River tunnel to the top. And it's color coded, so the North River tunnel would correspond with the LIR tracks, which are already at the top area, and the Gateway, the New Jersey Transit tracks are already at the bottom in Penn Station and the south, and the Amtrak sort of in the middle, or it overlaps. And so, and then Metro North will replace some of the LIR tracks, but in this arrangement, Penn Station becomes a station and a terminal, where, I mean, Amtrak, still passes through, but now LIR can pass through, or it has the option to stay at the West Side Yard or to reverse. So it gives LIR a lot of flexibility. The majority of LIR passengers will disembark at Penn Station, which means that you have an open train to bring people going in either direction, either to New Jersey or to Queens. And this approach avoids the necessity of the Penn South and demolishing the buildings and all this, because the through running idea, and there's been other through running proposals as well, but this through running idea, again, as you may be aware, it avoids the idea of creating unnecessary tracks, and you get that seamless experience with that. Okay, next slide, please. So LIR or through running. So basically, there's two models here. The top one has it from Queens going through Penn Station, and then at Secaucus West, it turns around and returns back into Queens. Or the bottom picture, you go from Queens through Penn Station, through Secaucus West, all the way to the Meadowlands, and then it turns around and comes back. And so, currently the trains from LIR go to Penn Station and then they reverse. They don't, but the idea here is to go pass through to New Jersey, thereby, allowing New Jersey passengers to get on that train that comes from Queens, go to New Jersey, get off, and then passengers from New Jersey can get back into New York City, to Manhattan, when it turns around, and so forth, and then go on to Queens. And during peak times, so if a train's heading to Long Island, part of the through running is it could quickly go back into New Jersey, do a round trip just at Secaucus West, and then go on its way to deep into Long Island. So you can do a quick dump some passengers off in New Jersey, drop them off and scoop up some passengers to bring them back. And it's only a few miles away. You can see in the map. It's just like it's almost ridiculous. The LIR is like right at your doorstep, and all they have to do is literally go a few miles, dump off a bunch of people in New Jersey, pick up a bunch of people, and you're done. You don't need any new trains, any new train operators. You can't get any more efficient than that, right? Next slide, please. By state service. So this is the idea of crosstown regional rail. So on the right-hand side, you have trains that are already going into Penn Station, and now they continue to the left into New Jersey, into Secaucus West, and then to the Meadowlands. And so here, LIR passengers from Queens have a one-seat ride that will eventually get to the Meadowlands. Passengers from Long Island can switch trains to go to the Meadowlands. Now, passengers from New York, if they want to go to Newark Air Train, they have to, or to Newark in general, they have to still transfer at Penn Station. So I know there are other proposals that want to have through running to Newark. I don't think that makes sense. I have a through running to Secaucus West into the Meadowlands, because there's enough New Jersey Transit trains that are already going to Newark. Why duplicate that service, right? There's plenty of New Jersey Transit trains going to Newark, so you can transfer from Penn Station to Newark if you want to go to Newark, or to the air train that's further south of downtown Newark. Okay, now from LIR passengers from New Jersey that go into New York, you can pass through into Queens. And guess what? At Willets Point, you have the LG air train, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Or at Jamaica, you have the JFK air train. And again, people want to transfer to the airports. You have the air train, and this is a game changer, because you get a lot of New Jersey people who don't have to, even if they don't drive, all the ride-sharing vehicles, all the unnecessary, or buses, or taxis, or limousines, all that unnecessary traffic driving through Manhattan just to get to the airport. This train through running can really remove all that unnecessary trips. And likewise, people going to the Meadowlands for the big games, for the football, for the new basketball, hockey, and the arena, all those trips can be avoided. This is huge, right? You can remove all that traffic, unnecessary traffic that's currently there. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so on the left, that gives you a little more detail. I'm going to talk just a little bit. I don't want to go into all the details here, but this is just a grid, a sort of a graph that shows from Penn Station. You can, the blue track, is tracks that's going to the Meadowlands that go through Secaucus West, and then they'll go to the Meadowlands. But for trains that are not going to the Meadowlands, that sort of loop back into Secaucus West, that's that loop track in brown. And likewise, all the trains coming from the Meadowlands will go to Secaucus West, and then we'll work its way to Penn Station. And so the trains will go to Jamaica, but for those trains going to Jamaica, you'll get a one-seat ride to Jamaica, but you're not guaranteed beyond that. You likely have to transfer, as we're saying. The Meadowlands to Willets Point train is a distinct train line, which I'll talk about. And then when it reaches Willets Point, it'll reverse. And so it's a distinct train line between the Meadowlands and Willets Point. And the passengers going to Queens, they can either get off at Penn Station, or they can continue into either, Willis Point or Jamaica, as the previous slide talked about. If anyone's going to just Penn Station, they can take any old train because all the trains have to stop at Penn Station. But if they want to pass through and go to Queens, they can pick one of the two, either the Willis Point line or the Jamaica line, like I mentioned in the earlier slide. And if they want to go to a specific Long Island, like if they want to go to Port Washington, they can either switch at Willis Point or in Penn Station, or if they want to go to, Nassau County, Suffolk County, whatever, they can switch to Jamaica or Penn Station. So that's there. Next slide, please. Now, the LIR train schedule. So now eastbound New Jersey to Willis Point. So, you have the Meadowlands, Secaucus West, Penn Station. And this is the existing Woodside and Willis Point. And so here, this is the air train. And I know this is controversial and some people, they're saying, but my plan sort of validates the use of air train because now it shows that it's not just, it's not some people that only Eastern Long Island will benefit. No, people from Midtown Manhattan and also from New Jersey. You get people coming in to the LJ air train, not only from Midtown, but also from New Jersey. So it validates the usage of the air train to get that passenger service and so forth. And I also make the case, if you look in the printer, now many of you may know back in the day, there was like I think in the 1980s, the Long Island Railroad had a train stop at Elmhurst. And I don't remember the exact street there, but it's near Corona, but in Elmhurst there. And it got discontinued. If you look at Wikipedia, it'll tell you all the information. It got discontinued because of low ridership. There was talk 10 years ago to revive it, but they said, well, we'll wait till East Side Access is done. But this plan here can also jumpstart that. So bring local access to that part of Queens to have Elmhurst as a local stop. So then you'd have Woodside and Elmhurst and Willis Point for the local train route. And then the express train, which was talked about for the air train, will provide faster service between Midtown and LJ Airport, as well as from New Jersey to LJ Airport as well. So that's that. And then and again, it wouldn't conflict with the Port Washington line. That's a separate train line. This graph would be from New Jersey to Willis Point, and it turns around. Now on the bottom, the Jamaica one, this is different. This one does overlap with Jamaica. So ordinarily, you have a train from Penn Station to say Montauk, right? Let's just use that example. In this example, instead of going to Montauk already, it'll go to New Jersey and then turn around, come back, and then go to Montauk. So it's the same train line, but prior to going to Montauk, it'll go to New Jersey, do a quick run, drop off, scoop up passengers. You can come right back. It's the same train, the same driver, whatever, and then you just go on your very main way. Whether that train happened to be a local train or whether the train happened to be an express train, it overlaps, and you have the same train, the same operator, more or less. And so I talked about there. And then the Meadowlands station could be skipped. So in peak times, when you have a lot of trains coming out from Penn Station going to Jamaica and beyond, they can just go to Secaucus West, dump off a bunch of New Jersey people, and come right back, and then go all the way to Jamaica. And you'll see in the map, it's only like just 3 miles away. And you're really on the doorstep. It's ridiculous how no one thought of this before. And it makes it very efficient. Next slide, please. Okay, capital and operating costs. So the capital costs are derived from these entities. So I said the federal government, which includes the infrastructure bill, and so the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, they're paying for part of the Gateway project. The state of New Jersey, state of New York, and of course value capture, which will come from Meadowlands and Secaucus. And likewise, the operating costs will come from New Jersey, New York, and Meadowlands and Secaucus value capture. Next slide. Construction timeline. So people say, well, okay, Gateway may take 10 years. You're going to have to wait 10 years, and say, no, you don't have to wait all 10 years. So the way this can work is going to be this. The arena and the Secaucus West complex and the tracks for LIR New Jersey, it won't take 10 years. It'll take about a few years to build that. So you can go ahead and build that stuff out. And then when it's built, then the LIR trains can use those tracks in New Jersey and go to the Meadowlands. It'll use the existing Hudson Tunnel, but it can only go do it off peak hours because obviously you can't put any more trains during peak hours, even with the pandemic and whatnot. So during off peak hours, but you get some travel going in. And then as the Gateway project is done, and particularly after the Gateway Tunnel is done and after the North River Tunnel is rehabilitated, then you can get the through running during peak times. But the point is you can still have the initial service even though the Gateway project isn't done. So that because the other components, the arena, the Secaucus West complex, and the New Jersey tracks, it won't take a whole 10 years. So you can get that built and get initial service going during off-peak hours. And again, when you go into the arena, you're not going to go during rush hour traffic anyway. So it kind of works out anyways. And then when that comes, and that in the coming years, as everything gets, built, then it'll come in full steam. And the Penn Station will be constructed, and it shouldn't take 10 years to rebuild Penn Station. So if MSG is rebuilt in a few years, then it'll take a few years. So all about the same time, it'll all come together is my point. All right, next slide, please. So here's a summary. I'm not going to go through. I'm just going to give just a little big picture here. I'm saying that the Bergen-Secaucus loop that people sort of fantasize about, but they talk about in abstract terms. But the reality is it's not feasible, okay? Because having a big commuter rail, it is a certain turning radius. It's different than the LIRR because you have a locomotive train. It takes, and you need a lot of space and turning radius. And if you look at the map, it doesn't really work. They always create this abstract, loop that doesn't make sense, but nobody ever talks about it. But they want to secretly hope no one notices. But anyways, so it's not, and also from New Jersey point of view, and also from Metro North. See, a lot of people, there's a misconception. People think everyone wants to go to Penn Station. It's not true. People do want to go to Penn Station from New Jersey and from the Metro North region in Orange County, Rockland County. But Hoboken is still an important destination because if you want to work in Lower Manhattan, it makes sense to go to Hoboken, then switch the PATH train, than to go to Penn Station, which is already crowded, and taking the subway down. Right? You want to avoid that. Stay on the train, go to Hoboken, and take a PATH train if you want to go to Lower Manhattan. So this, and also if you want to go to Jersey City, Hoboken, the Gold Coast, that's still a destination in and of itself. So the problem with putting the loop is if you have trains going to Penn Station directly, as some people want to do, then what about those people who want to go to Hoboken? You have to create duplicate train service, which means more trains and more operators. Who's going to pay that? New Jersey Transit barely has enough money to pay for its existing service, and they're not going to raise taxes to do it, right? So this plan makes it cheaper for New Jersey and everybody else by simply transferring, and they're already accustomed to transferring. We're not taking away one seat ride. They never had the one seat ride to begin with, but this provides a very convenient transfer method because the new Secaucus West will be all in one elevation, very convenient to transfer and less congestion from Hoboken. And then I say, fine, the Long Island Railroad will be the service provider that connects with Secaucus West to Penn Station through running Long Island Railroad. And so then again, even though the three Hoboken train lines won't have the one-seat train ride to Penn Station that some people want, the trade-off is the Meadowlands gets the one-seat train ride, and the Meadowlands is an economic engine for New Jersey and for the region because New York City also benefits on the arena or the stadium and hopefully the new arena and the entertainment. So Meadowlands is a huge economic engine for the region, and having a one-seat ride to Penn Station is really important for both New Jersey and New York, from not only from congestion reduction but also for economic development and so forth. So it's a huge win for the region. And again, as you all know, the Penn South thing is a debacle. You have all these historic buildings. It's going to cost a lot of money, a hell of a lot more than Secaucus West. In Secaucus West, you have a bunch of warehouses, for heaven's sakes, right? I mean, why would you not want, I'll talk about this later, but you want, transit-oriented development. It's ridiculous how they have a bunch of warehouses within the doorstep of New York City. Why would you put so many warehouses so close? It's like all the land use planning is, anyways, this is my little rant there. You would think, anyway, and again, New Jersey, look, with the whole bi-state travel, look, New York has a bunch of transit infrastructure. New Jersey desperately needs train tracks. It desperately needs stations, not New York. So New Jersey needs the infrastructure investments. And again, you can avoid the negative impacts of Manhattan. And then finally, with this two-tunnel approach, the Gateway Tunnel is going to be, mostly managed by New Jersey because New Jersey Transit will be the primary beneficiary of the Gateway project, the Gateway Tunnel, along with Amtrak. So the existing tunnel, remember, New York State's paying about half the same money as New Jersey, right? Remember early on when Governor Cuomo said, "Oh, this is a New Jersey project, not New York," and then people had to twist Cuomo's arm to say, "Oh, Cuomo ought to pay." Governor Christie said, New York has to pay half the budget. Okay, if New York's going to pay half the project, they ought to get something out of it. Okay, New York will take ownership of the North River Tunnel. So New York gets a tunnel, New Jersey gets a tunnel. They're each paying half, right? So so nobody can say it's a New Jersey project. It's both New Jersey and New York, and New York will manage the North River Tunnel, and by doing so, they will support their own train, which is LIR, the MTA division going through the state of New York, and the state of New Jersey supports Gateway Tunnel through their New Jersey Transit Corporation. So you get both, they both have their autonomy, and they both take ownership. They're both paying about half anyway. So it all comes out in that sense. And finally, this provides an avenue because people say, we're going to put Madison Square Garden. You can't put it in. Look, I read all the proposals, I read the competition over the past several years, the Municipal Art Society, all the different groups talked about, like you put the MSG in the Meadowlands down the block, there was another proposal, Rashawn Chakrabarty talked about 2 blocks away. There's no space to condemn those buildings. It costs a lot of money to tear the buildings down, to put an arena that, you need a lot of space. Look at UBS Arena as an example. A modern hockey arena, basketball arena needs a lot of space. There's no space in Manhattan to do it. You cannot put it anywhere in Manhattan. So, but if you're going to put it somewhere else, you have to have a train service go to it. So my plan justifies moving Madison Square Garden away, provides the train service, economic development, and guess what? Madison Square Garden benefits because they have a brand new arena. They can make profit. They can make money. They can maybe win a championship, right? They have resources there. And let me add one more thing. In the Meadowlands, if you may not know, the Madison Square Garden, they have this new project called the Sphere. It's this really cool looking project they're building in Las Vegas and London. And if you go to the website, you'll see it's like a giant dome, and it's like some real high tech thing. Now they could bring that to the New York market by putting it near the arena in the Meadowlands as part of ancillary development. And so again, my point is Madison Square Garden can profit off this. We're not here to look. I believe a private business, if you're going to move somebody, you got to give them a reason to do so and make it economically viable for them. So when I'm not here to punish them. My plan actually makes them make money. So everybody benefits from all this. So nobody's banishing them or calling them evil. Everybody benefits, private business and the public benefits from all this. Next slide, please.
This is finished.
I'll talk very briefly on the maps here. I'm not going to go over the details, but this is the basic generic map of the LIR New Jersey map. The light blue, the teal is the existing tracks, and the yellow is the new track that we built. So on the top yellow is the loop for the Meadowlands. The Meadowlands loop, and the bottom yellow would be, you can see a little loop there for the Secaucus West area. Now the distances, because sometimes people say, oh, that's really far away. No, it's not. To go to Secaucus West, now from the tunnel, see the purple, the magenta square on the right. Now that's not Penn Station. That goes to Penn Station, and that's underneath the Palisade. Now you still have to go a few miles. You have to go underneath Eastern Hudson County and under the river. So I don't know the exact distance. It might be 3 or 4 miles, but it's just still a straight underneath tunnel. But once you get out of that tunnel, it's only like 2.5 miles to get to Secaucus West, that new station. And if you were to go to the Meadowlands in the short path, it's only 5.5 miles. My point here is this distance is shorter to go from Penn Station to the Meadowlands is shorter than to go to Jamaica in the other direction. It's that close. And it's really at your finger. It's like all these things are so close together. And if you were to dump a bunch of, remember the example I said earlier about a train going to Long Island? If we were to reverse, go to New Jersey, dump off a bunch of people and pick up people coming back to Manhattan as a quick round trip travel, you're literally going only 5.5 miles. Well, technically more because it's like 4 miles. So maybe within 10 miles round trip, and with one stop, so going from Penn Station to Secaucus West, including the distance under Eastern Hudson County and the river. So 5.5 miles round trip from the tunnel portal, and about 4 miles underneath Eastern Hudson County and Hudson River. But 10 miles is not a long distance for a commuter rail line. And again, it's still shorter than Jamaica, which trains go back and forth all the time, right? LA try to go back and forth. So it's like so close. You come right there and they literally turn around and boom, you're done. You can really drop off New Jersey people and pick them up, and it's that efficient. And you have the same train, the same operator, and so forth. So it makes it really efficient. And it gives New Jersey, LIR is a very reputable, I think it's a very reputable company, and it's outsourced stuff for them. New Jersey saves money. They don't have to build new train service. They just, pay toward new service for LIR. Next slide, please. The Meadowlands map is detailed here. So in the blue area is sort of, nothing's built there. It's just like a swampland. That will be developed. So the MSG arena is there, and then you have parking lots and ancillary development, like the example I gave. Like right now at MSG.
Sanjeev, I'm sorry. How many more slides do you have?
Just a few more.
Okay. I don't think we really need to focus too much on the New Jersey end, just to say that it goes to the plausibility of the plan, but we should focus on our district a little bit.
Okay, just go to the next slide.
Just quickly review the Jersey portion.
And then, so these are some pictures you can look at for what the dimensional dimensions. Next slide, please. No, this is for urban planning purposes. So in this area where, you know, in the yellow and blue, see how you have all these warehouses? It's a waste of resources because you can build transit-oriented development, your affordable housing, market rate buildings. You're so close to New York, so close to Manhattan, as far as the tunnel entrance. You can instead of people talking about tearing down, you know, making Penn Station south, you can tear these warehouses down and put all this here and avoid tearing down the historical buildings and the wonderful things you have in Manhattan, and tear down these warehouses, for heaven's sakes. Put your affordable housing, put your transit-oriented development here, put your market rate buildings here. And so that's the idea there. Also, you can put like in the purple and orange, you can have like the bus, I wouldn't say a bus terminal. It would not replace the Midtown bus terminal, but you can have bus lines coming there, bus rapid transit. You can have parking, commuter parking as well. So, and the station would be there, and the other slide shows. All this is right nearby, so that's my point to that. Next slide, please. And so then this is like a zoomed out issue. You can see the Secaucus West Station, the orange, and literally the train would go up in there, and you come to the Meadowlands and go over there. Next slide, please.
Yeah, we can blow through the Jersey part.
Yeah. And then, yeah, this is more pictures of that. Next slide. There's a bicycle ped bridge there. And finally, there's the Secaucus West Station where LIR, New Jersey Transit would come. And just to make a connection with Penn Station, in the Secaucus West Station, the south side, the bottom would be the LIR tracks, and the north side, the top would be New Jersey Transit, and that'd be opposite Penn Station. The north side, the top is LIR, and the bottom is New Jersey Transit, and then the tracks show how they would interface with that. Okay, and then finally, the last slide is simply that, and that's the end.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that thorough presentation. I don't want to give short shrift to the Jersey portion, but we're really concerned with our district, and it goes to the plausibility of the proposal, but we can review the full proposal in detail. You provided it to our committee. All right, so do we have questions from the committee for Sanjeev? And thank you very much again for the presentation.
Thank you for reminding me.
David, do you have a question, David?
Yeah, wow, this is a great plan. Thank you for your hard work. And really, I mean, I'm going to have to digest this. It's late at night, so I couldn't really get it all. But I just wanted to throw this out there that maybe to handle it administratively and also territorially, you might want to throw this into the hands of the Port Authority, because it's New Jersey, New York Port Authority. So this way, they know how to deal with a lot of the administrative stuff that you're talking about already, and also it can solve some of the territorial problems. Have you considered that?
Well, they're already in the mix.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
There are a lot of, I mean, yeah, they're already in the mix because of the tunnel. There are a lot of stakeholders. It's super complicated. We've dealt with multi-stakeholder projects before. This, in a way, addresses the prior iterations of a through running plan talked about integration or systems or operational integration between NJ Transit and LIRR, whereas this doesn't necessarily take that approach. It kind of coordinates the efforts of those operators rather than integrates them.
Right, and that's where the Port Authority.
And there's a lot of, recognizing that there are a lot of lifts here. We gotta, get the Dolans on board. I hope Governors Murphy and Hochul are here at this meeting, reviewing this project. But it's a bi-state, regional, multifold plan. But we, as a committee sitting in CB4, we can, discuss its merits and make recommendations to those that we deem fit to recommend. Christine.
Yeah, well, I want to just answer the question that was asked just now.
Yeah.
I sent out a bunch of emails. I probably sent out maybe close to 100 emails to various political transit leaders, and yes, the Port Authority, MTA, the politicians, the governors, and the mayors, and all these people. I'll report that I got two important emails. One I got early on from the Lieutenant Governor of New Jersey, because she happens to, Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, who happens to be also in charge of community affairs, and she said in her email account, whether I don't know if she wrote it or not, but someone from her email account wrote back saying that they're going to look into the plan for the Meadowlands part. And then I got an email from Governor Hochul's staff, her assistant secretary from her, New York email, and she said that they actually instructed the Port Authority and MTA to look into it, and she seemed favorable. And also sent an email to NIMTAG, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority for New York City, the Metropolitan, and they said that they're going to send it out to the Port Authority and the MTA. So they're already looking at it. Of course, as you know, there's a lot of stakeholders. I think if there's going to be any stumbling blocks, one will be there's a contingent of New Jersey people that want the so-called one-seat train ride, and so they want to tear down. They want to get the Penn South because they want to go from their suburb and have a one-seat ride, which I think is a dumb premise. But there is a constituency group that wants that. So just so you all have a heads up on that, and
Sure, we're aware of their position. Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, Sanjeev, thank you so much. It's better to see you in person than on Streets blog, making comments.
Oh yeah, I must say.
So, did you present it to the Meadowlands Chamber of Commerce?
I did. I sent an email to them. They have not replied back, but I did notice that. Well, I've noticed they're looking at it, but I have not heard a formal response.
Yeah. Okay. So if I may reposition everything or try to understand the big picture here, we have a rethink proposal which is trying to do through running of New Jersey into the Bronx. And then we have your proposal, which is trying to do a through running of LIRR into New Jersey, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I would say this is kind of very high level. I mean, very oversimplification, but this is pretty much what. And then your proposal on the top of that is suggesting that Madison Square Garden be relocated in New Jersey in the Meadowlands, right? So anyway, I just wanted to re-articulate that at a very high level so we understand all the different pieces. And obviously, New Jersey, I mean, MTA and Penn Development don't want to do through running for anybody. They just want to create a terminal under Penn South, which is kind of a really silly idea and expensive and painful, etc. So I think that's where we are.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just make a quick comment to that. I've looked at the rethink and other through running proposals. I think RPA had one, and also there's some other group had one through Hoboken of all places. But as far as the rethink one, I'm not a big fan of New Jersey Transit going into New York, honestly, because the New York train lines, the one from Penn Station to Jamaica, that's already heavily traveled by the LIRR. And then having New Jersey Transit going to the Bronx again, I think that I like the idea of having New Jersey Transit as a terminal in Penn Station, and there's already enough capacity to do that. Some trains might go into Sunnyside Yards, but I don't think they need to go there. And then the other aspect is, I make the case that it's better for New Jersey Transit not to have a Penn South, because this goes back to the argument in my summary. They would have to create two separate train lines, one going to Penn South and one going to Hoboken. And that means they have to get more train sets and more train operators because there's a divergence there, right? In my plan, New Jersey Transit saves money because they continue going to Hoboken, and the people who want to go to Penn Station, they just transfer at a different station that's more convenient to transfer and has less congestion than Hoboken. But you have the same train line, the same number of train operators, so New Jersey Transit doesn't have to expand its train line and build and increase its own taxes.
Yeah, and Sanjeev, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. A few years back, we had a discussion about extending the 7 into Secaucus, which was along the same line. Unfortunately, politically, there is that obsession with a one-seat ride, and I don't think any of us, it's way above our pay level to convince everybody that it shouldn't be there. So that's something we have to deal with one way or another.
Yeah, and I think we've also heard repeatedly from a lot of these major stakeholders that they've looked at through running and it's not feasible. And I think the existence of this feasible alternative. I know there are some heavy lifts involved in this feasible alternative, but that belies their point that through running is, that the way they dismiss through running possibilities out of hand. Go ahead, Viren.
No, just sort of to echo what Christine and everybody else was saying about this project. I mean, it makes sense, right? And that's the problem with this proposal. And then, if common sense prevail, a lot of things would happen very differently, as we know. I'm pretty sure, Sanjeev, you must be aware of the Tyboro project for last 20, 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, since my college days, I've been sort of reading about the Tyboro plan forever, right? So my question to you is twofold. One is, who else have you sort of presented this to? Have you spoken to RPA? Have you spoken to NYMTC? And other sort of, one of the stakeholders that are this think tank sort of organizations that might actually provide you with the kind of input or impetus that you might be looking for. And like Christine and Del both said, we are a kind of community board and advisory sort of capacity. There's only so much we can do in terms of providing you any further impetus, not so much the input, but the impetus. So that's one part of the question that I would like you to sort of tell us. Who are the other sort of stakeholders, at least, not stakeholders, who are the other sort of think tank kind of organizations you might have spoken with?
Yeah, I've sent emails literally to everybody. I sent to the RPA, I sent to Rethink New York, I sent to the Empire Station Coalition that many of you are members of. I sent to all the academic people in the media have been quoted about this issue. Now, I haven't heard back, but this, the RPA has their own plan. They have their own agenda. They want to, not only do they want Penn Station South, they want a new tunnel into Queens, which I think is unrealistic, and that's, unnecessary expense. Rethink has their own agenda, and that's their prerogative as well. So, but my plan with this is, I think it's more tangible. It's not like, see, the problem with these other plans is you have to they want to like RPA has a sort of T-Rex plan and Rethink they want to combine LIRR, New Jersey Transit and Amtrak or those two and Metro North like magically into one. It's not going to happen, and I don't think it ever should happen, because let me give you the big picture. And people don't seem to understand this. It's all about tax policy. That's what it boils down to. See, if you go to a place like London, for example, their western suburbs is still part of the London metropolitan area. They pay the same taxes. New Jersey is your western suburbs. They're like a whole different sovereign entity. It's like a sovereign nation. New York and New Jersey have very strong governments, strong policies, strong sovereignty. New Jersey has a very different tax policy. Their taxation towards transit, they don't have a dedicated transit tax to transit. People have been talking about creating a dedicated tax to pay for New Jersey Transit. They haven't had it yet. They keep diverting money from their capital budget to pay their operating expenses. New York has its own dedicated tax revenue from different buckets. And so, and of course, you have legacy infrastructure. So New Jersey doesn't want to pay New York taxes. So that's the bottom line. Because you're saying, let's have through running, these other people saying through running, but they don't want to pay through running taxes. If you want to have through running like RPA, like Rethink, okay, then New Jersey has to be willing to pay the same taxes in New York. That's not going to happen. We know this. In fact, the whole point of living in New Jersey is that, New Jersey is not a low tax state, but they don't want to pay the taxation.
In a way, you could look at your plan and say there are a lot of heavy lifts, but I feel like the heavy lifts are on the other side. If you don't mind, committee, I'm going to go to Layla, our neighbor in CB5, just because I'm eager to hear her comments. Layla, Janine, can you bring Layla over?
Yeah, I'm transferring over. It might take a few seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys, for giving me so much time during your meeting. Thank you, Sanjay, for the presentation. I actually have some questions. It is my understanding that you did give this presentation to the Gateway Commission.
Yeah.
And I was curious to hear what the commissioners had to say.
Simple. I emailed them. I never heard back from them.
Oh.
Oh, actually, I take it back. I emailed the head of New York, Steve Cohen.
Yes.
Then I replied, because I gave him like a PDF version and said I replied back saying I'll give you the PowerPoint for a higher resolution. And he said, okay, I'll take a look at it. But other than that, no one ever replied back.
Oh, okay.
New
Because
York and New Jersey people.
I read, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I read the transcript of a meeting that had your presentation. So I was under the impression that you gave the presentation.
Oh, that was a public policy one where the people can, like, everyone, like RPA gave theirs, I gave mine. I just update up.
But they did not invite you. So they did not invite you to give a presentation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I wasn't
to the commission.
Right.
Okay. And who is your or are your main supporters in this plan? You know, it's been underscored, and you know that it is a very, very, very heavy lift. And as brilliant as the proposal may be, you can't do it alone.
Well, before I answer that, I will say, going back to your earlier question, my understanding is just by looking at the media statements, maybe the commissioners and the executive director, they want the 1C train ride, because I read so New York State, the Assembly had a legislative hearing in New York about the Gateway in December, and I watched the video, and I'd emailed the legislature before, but they were, the first thing they said was, we want the 1C train ride. So they were like trying to justify that. And so then I read an article from Larry Higgins, the guy at NewJersey.com, he's the transportation writer.
Yeah.
And he wrote an article. He was, I emailed him about it. He didn't reply, but he went behind. He said something like, he asked the commissioners, is the plan still to have a 1C train ride? And they're like, as of right now, we want the 1C train ride. And this is like a month after I sent it out to everybody. So they have it.
Okay, but back to my question. I don't want to take too much time of the meeting of the great people of CB4. Who are your supporters?
Oh yeah, so well, I can say, I just got an email from Governor Hochul's staff. Her assistant transportation director. And she, New York State engineer, where she wrote an email saying that, thanks for the email. We sent it to MTA, LIR. We'll take them to take a look at it. And she's been very, she's had a support. I don't have the exact words.
In the field of advocacy, in the field of, transportation advocacy groups, or
I'll tell you this. I know I sent it out to RPA, the tri-state, all the people, all the who's who. Nobody replied back.
Layla, it sounds like Sanjeev needs some advocacy in that space.
Yeah, I think that, trying to start to create some sort of a coalition and, getting other groups to coalesce around your plan and your ideas.
I agree.
Is something that is going to be really critical. I have one more question, Dale, if you allow me. It has been brought to us that moving MSG out of Manhattan and actually out of Midtown is a non-starter. How do you address this particular issue?
Yeah,
and is there any room, and have you considered alternatives so that as you go, you can start to make some concessions, because the likelihood that the plan that you have envisioned would be implemented 100% is pretty unrealistic. And, we agree with you that MSG needs to move. We were actually on record since kind of like time immemorial, 2013, and maybe earlier than that, saying that MSG needs to move. And MSG is not averse to moving, but they don't want to be far away from Penn Station.
Right. So I read the media reports, but that was based on a meeting that took place with Empire State Development back in May. They're saying that on that report, it was cost effective because they made the assumption that MSU would remain in Manhattan. And if that were the major premise.
No, but that's not my question. My question is, how do you deal with the reluctance from MSG to move out of Manhattan?
Oh, okay, right. Well, my entire presentation provided an economic argument from the move. First of all, they're going to have a 1C train ride to the Meadowlands, including the football stadium and MSG. Second of all, they have a brand new facility like UBS Stadium, UBS Arena, which means they have modern facility that they can, luxury box and having more space and to build championships. They'll have ancillary development. I mentioned earlier about the if they want to put that theater, that sphere project, and finally corporate naming rights, right? Because you can put corporate naming rights that's at least almost $500 million or more that goes toward the cost and the 1 seat train ride, and they still have a presence in Manhattan. So we're not banishing them, we're not penalizing them. They have the corporate office in Manhattan. They have their Radio City Music Hall.
If I could just say, I think that the part of the persuasion argument for them is to say your audience for these events at MSG, which are a lot of Long Island commuters who come in, get off at the train station, go upstairs, are going to have a very similar experience because they're going to get on a train, get delivered to the new stadium, and go upstairs. So I think that's part of the persuasion argument.
Well,
I don't know if it's going to work, but it's part of the persuasion argument.
Well, if they get a new arena, at some point, their arena's outdated and old. There's no space to build a new arena. They have ancillary development opportunities there, and of course, the region they can move.
Sanjeev, I think we've covered this. I'm going to go to Christine. Maybe we can start to wrap up because it is.
Do we have the public there? Anybody in the public has raised their hands?
I don't have any hands up from the public.
Okay.
I just have you.
Yeah, I was.
Thank you for your comments, Leila.
Thank you for your
comments,
Leila. And thank you, Sanjeev, for an enormous amount of work in a very complex field. I don't know that we can write a support statement on that. I think the thing that we could support would be to say we support, through running for New Jersey Transit and for LIRR, both, and then that's as far as we could go, because obviously we support through running. That's what makes the regional network. And that's what makes potentially the development of Penn, the redevelopment of Penn, much less expensive and much more effective. But we don't have the detailed information to make those decisions, no recommendation. So we could have a general statement of support for through running both ways. I don't think we have ever done that, by the way. And we've
done it within the body of other letters where we've said we would like through running to be further explored. And I think this might be an opportunity to say we as a committee have heard multiple proposals for through running operations, each of which has its benefits and challenges, but we are convinced that there is a through running solution for Penn Station, which would preclude the eminent domain taking, the eminent domain of Penn expansion in Penn South,
and would cost less for the station,
and would be a more robust regional transit development plan, and that would require a lot of coordination and by-state cooperation. But it's within the realm of the possible.
Now we would need to talk to the elected, because that's slightly different from what we have said the common position was, although there is no common position, right? But I don't think it hurts. I think we should say it should be explored fully, to the full extent of the different plans on the table, because it has so much upside.
Yeah, and I guess we should go to Schumer, Nadler, local.
Well, we should go to Nadler because he was driving that process. At least say we are going to say that. What do you think? But I think that's as much as we can say. And I think that would be a good outcome, because then, Sanjeev, your proposal would be rolled up into other proposals which have been more studied, let's say.
Yeah, the only thing I can say is I know that the MTA and the Port Authority are looking at it, so I guess we'll have to see if they think it's feasible or whatever
They are not. I mean, I don't want to disappoint you, but I know that the Port Authority doesn't want to get involved in that. And the MTA is being pushed, reluctantly in study anything which is called through running. So that's the reality on the ground right now. But inserting that now at the beginning of the NEPA process is not a bad idea.
Yeah. So is that a resolution for a letter
That's,
to Nadler and other electeds to,
well, and then the MTA and ESD and all the
all the
usual
CCs
suspects.
to make sure that we've reviewed, and I don't know if we want to do this across community boards or if Layla, your
Well,
board.
I don't know, Layla, is that a position you could take in your community board?
Yes, I think so. Absolutely.
I mean, it's very high level, right? We are just saying, please.
We can either, would we
There
do
is
it?
not just
think
one
that in
single option,
essence,
there are more.
Yeah, I think in essence, we have already said that much, right?
Yeah.
In the numerous letters and resos and responses that we have issued, in the past.
Yeah, we're just
18
adding
months.
we are adding a little piece here, saying, okay, there is another option. There is one option is New Jersey Transit going, and then there is another option is Long Island Railroad going.
Yeah.
So this is
both should be studied because they could be very beneficial.
Yeah, and it is also my understanding that Tri-State Transportation is actually working on and maybe possibly another version of what through running could look like, and which I think is very healthy. We need to have these great people with great brains and this amazing expertise to bring this sense of emulation, where we can see that that there are more ways to actually do it, and and hopefully that will help our great friends with Amtrak, MTA, and New Jersey Transit to actually get to work.
So this is a CB4 letter to electeds and stakeholders outlining our general support for a through running solution for Penn Station, outlining specific interests in the benefits of such a plan, acknowledging that there are multiple plans out there to be considered and studied, and that the benefits seem to outweigh the deficits of the proposal that's being leaned towards, or something along those lines.
Something along those lines,
yeah. Do we have a proposal?
Yeah, what you want
Do
to
we have a motion?
If I may say, sorry, Deb, I was going to say that basically we don't want to sound like we're supporting this proposal versus that. What we're saying is open up the conversation.
We want to go broad and say we want through running to be complete, to be examined fully at Penn Station.
Right, in the context of tri-state region, rather than simply sort of,
Yes, because again, we have heard many times that the through running, when we bring it up, it gets shut down, like not feasible.
I make the motion, but I just want to make sure that the public had a chance to have input. I don't recall.
We didn't have any hands up from the public.
Okay, so I make the motion.
Do we have a second? Okay, all committee members in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any present not eligible? Sarah, okay, noted. Okay, thank you, Sanjeev. I really appreciate you coming and being so focused and thorough in your presentation. It's really interesting. So it's kind of mind-blowing, but also interesting. And we'll move on to the next agenda item.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to do the next agenda item, but I'd
Please, because I'm getting hoarse.
Right. I just want to postpone it. I'm missing some information. I'm missing some information and input from some agencies in order to do that. So I'd like to move to the number 5, the curb management.
Okay, so we're gonna skip the committee discussion of the traffic mitigation proposal. Okay, we're gonna table that until next month, and we're gonna move to curb management.
Right.
Okay, so the general idea of you want to go ahead, Christine?
On curb management?
Yeah. Or I can.
Well, you can start, and I have sent a document to
So
discuss.
the general idea is for us to convene and form a kind of consensus opinion on what our priorities are in terms of curb use in our district. And what Christine sent is kind of like a a list of curb options for curbside usage, and we're asking you to like prioritize, like.
Well, we may not want to do, I'm sorry, Dale, but we may
go
not
ahead.
want to prioritize right away. But yes, eventually we want to prioritize. But today we wanted to mostly think about if there are any other curb use that we should have added to this list and that we forgot. And by curb, I mean what is in the parking lane, right? We don't mean what is on the sidewalk. We mean what is on the parking lane.
Right, the 11 feet or so, like out off the curb in the street bed, in the road
And
bed.
so we have, I'm going to read it quickly if somebody doesn't have it in front of them. The options are what we find today, right? An MTA bus stop, a bus lane, an intercity bus stop, a tour bus stop up on, a bike parking, a bike lane, a shared trash repository. We don't have that yet, but we will. So a private vehicle parking, you know, which means it's not metered or time limited. The private electric vehicle charging, NYPD car parking, commercial parking, metered and time limited, loading and unloading zone, pickup drop-off zone, which are typically in front of residential building, open restaurant shed, street seats, which are, you know, seats in the roadbed, and then new NYPD car parking. I think I put that twice. So
because you love it so much.
Right, because I love it so much.
Don't do that, please. Don't do that, please.
Right. So and then the prioritization should be different depending whether it's a residential side street or it's a commercial street or an arterial, right? It's going to be a different animal. And then especially on the arterial, we have blocks of 200 feet, where on a residential side street, we have blocks of typically 800 feet.
800 to 1,000 feet.
So, so the first question to you guys is, did we forget anything? So I'll circulate that. And then the next thing we would do after that is maybe send a little, you know, survey of us, and then survey of the board members. And maybe we would send the survey to the whole population and then get the feedback. And then, you know, informed by the survey, establish a sort of policy or framework so that when people are coming to ask for private parking or this or that, we can look at whether the other use have been satisfied. And then we make a decision in function of that.
Yeah, we just did the street naming thing, and we had a document, I don't know if anybody saw it, that had like, what are the criteria that we want street co-naming applicants to meet? And it's a policy set in advance so that we're not constantly being reactive to asks or neighborhood issues, so that we have a guideline within the committee for addressing these concerns.
Blake, you were.
Yeah, just a question, because I was wondering if you knew of any areas where the city successfully collected money for the use of that space, other than just the traffic meters, because that would also, you know, kind of inform how I think about some of those where, you know, it's a public business or, you know, some other entity that's paying for use of this space.
So the restaurants?
Well, I mean, certainly the commercial parking meters is a collection of money. And it's pretty high, by the way.
So the restaurants pay for the streeteries?
Not yet, but it is the intention that they will. So we expect that to happen.
It's Colleen from DOT, not yet. They're not paying a fee yet, just kind of similar like to intercity bus operators, but eventually they will be.
Yeah. What about the Colleen, thank you for joining us. What about the
Oh, I enjoy you guys immensely.
It was a cool meeting, right? What about the curbside? What about the curbside bus operators? Are they paying for the?
They pay an admin fee, but they don't pay the space.
They pay an admin fee, so it's like okay. All right. I'm sorry, Christine, if you want to run this.
No,
Tina,
go ahead.
Tina, did you have a question?
I just wanted to ask about whether the trucks, we have lots of trucks on our streets or around our streets. I assume they pay for some sort of permit, no?
Only if the space is a metered area.
Like a commercial parking?
If there is a meter, they have to pay for it. If there is no meter, Colleen, is there any delivery zone which is not metered?
No, not in that area, because we try to, install a lot of commercial paid muni meters citywide. And as Christine mentioned, if there is a meter, they have to pay, and depending how long they stay, the rates increase.
Yeah.
Does this exist yet? Is there a map that shows the curbside usage as occurring?
No, as usual, we're going to be, then DOT can take what we did and,
Yeah. All right, Viren.
Yeah, just on the same line, the bike corrals, commercial bike corrals for, Whole Foods and Amazon types of entities. I think that usage should be, there should be some sort of revenue generating mechanism put in place.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that the intent ultimately? Like, I know this was like, Whole Foods was like a pilot, but isn't the intent ultimately to have, to monetize those?
Colleen, do you know that?
Colleen?
No, I don't have an answer for that one yet.
Oh, okay. I thought there was some discussion of like them paying a kind of fee.
No, Dale, we made a resolution.
Recommended
probably, 3 months ago, right, where we say there should be a payment for it, but that's not translated yet into anything.
No, and what I'm suggesting, Christine, is that as part of this, whatever this document turns out to be, I think we should make that recommendation again, that there should be any commercial sort of use of right-of-way or parking lane where there's a...
All right, so we can ask the question on the survey, that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
we could ask the question on the survey saying, should that be, should people be paying for that?
Or maybe like on the survey, we can also say, is this currently a revenue source or should it be a revenue source?
Yeah, I think should it be a revenue source would be a good question.
Or what I'm suggesting is that the committee can take a position that maybe it should be.
No, we will eventually. What I'm saying is that as we are gathering information, we're asking the question, right? And then, out of that, we may decide that we want to ask to take a position on that.
Got it, Christine. There's two more things very quickly. One is the e-charging stations for e-bikes. You mentioned vehicles, but you want to just put /e-bikes in there.
But we don't have any. That doesn't exist, right?
No, but if we want to...
Okay, all right, that's a good one.
And then the last but not the least is, I think it's already sort of kind of taken care of, but Link NYC kind of Wi-Fi.
Oh, wait, that's a good point. I didn't put bike share here.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
just exactly row below.
David, did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, actually.
Wait, David. Viren, you said something at the end. I didn't capture it.
The Wi-Fi stations and the
Wi-Fi station on the sidewalk.
No, but like City Bike is City Bike doing Wi-Fi? Or you said separately City Bike and Wi-Fi?
The bike sharing themselves should have some sort of Wi-Fi stations. Similar to Lincoln.
Okay, but that gets to be a different discussion, is how do we transfer some use from one to the other, right?
Right.
Let me make a note. I'm not sure how to deal with that.
I got some. Nor do I actually, but but I think the Lincoln YC is already sort of on the curb, so it's doesn't qualify for this space.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not in the roadbed. Okay,
Right.
David, go ahead.
Sure.
One of the people from the public actually sent this, so this is not my brain, it's somebody else's brain, but I like what she wrote, so I really agree with it. We should make space for public bathrooms on the major avenues, and also, I'm going to slaughter this word, bioswales.
Bioswales.
Yes, bioswales. and possibly playgrounds. This would be great for the future, but especially the bioswales and the public bathrooms, because there's always a problem with going to the bathroom in New York. No matter who you are as a pedestrian, there's always, problems. So I think that should be put in on the streetscape. Definitely. And then the bioswales, obviously.
But wait,
And
the
of course-
bioswales is.
It's not the roadbed.
Well, it may be on the roadbed, but it's the treatment of a very narrow strip, right? It doesn't take the whole parking spot.
No, and Christine,
It would be in the middle. I mean, it would be in the middle. It wouldn't be in the parking spot, though, I don't think. But
Viren?
Sorry for putting in, but in our district, all 3 pits are actually bioswales.
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
Right. So there's already kind of a plan in place.
Okay. All right.
so, but also don't forget the, as I say, the playgrounds and the public bathrooms are really important.
Brett.
One thing I'll just kind of put out there, I'm not saying I even would support it per se, but I think it's something that it should be part of a consideration. But I think especially if we're going to hopefully get congestion pricing coming in, and our neighborhood streets are going to be really more for residents, hopefully something that will be more, something that'll be a consideration. I think some kind of permit parking, I know that would be a very new thing to Manhattan, but I think some way for people who actually live in the neighborhood to have access to the parking spaces instead of people from outside the neighborhood, to reduce travel.
Neighborhood parking passes.
Neighborhood parking passes, revenue generators.
Private parking with.
Not private parking. This would be more. These would be neighborhood permit parking.
No, but it's parking for a private car. That's
Oh yeah, got it.
Yeah, right. Not for a truck.
Yeah.
Boston has a lot of that.
There are a lot of areas, but I mean, I don't think until we get congestion pricing, it's going to be even something that's going to be discussed. But once that comes in, I think it's something we'd want to consider.
All right.
All right, this is what I'm saying.
Unless there's somebody else on the committee, I have a hand up from the public. I don't know if it's for this item. Melody, did you want to address this one? Oh, hand down. Maybe not. Maybe it was for the old item. Okay. All right.
So that's it. So that would be.
So we're going to take these suggestions and wrap them up into a survey question that we can, distribute among the committee, and then start to develop a set of guidelines for.
Well, I'd like to send it a little wider, maybe to the board, and maybe we can discuss to send it to the community to see.
Yeah, should we do it
reaction? First? And I mean, I don't mean that we are going to take specifically what people give back, but we want to see where they stand, right?
Yeah. Should we do it among the committee first, and then
yes,
we want to tweak it? We can then go board wide, and then we can go to the public.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be really interesting, and I think it's very needed because of all these new uses of this, the curb.
Yeah, it's time to revisit the priorities.
And so we never did that in this committee. So I think it's going to be very valuable. I didn't say taxi stand, right? What about that?
Or ride share taxi.
Also,
I think this was prompted by the fact that somebody on our new chair's block wanted a lot more parking.
Yes.
But I mean, wouldn't a taxi stand be covered even in a neighborhood loading zone, right? I mean, taxis can use that, right?
No. I'm really talking about
an old-fashioned taxi stand.
Right, a stand next to a station, next to.
They may not be in
Penn
every
station, right? You have a taxi line.
Yeah.
And then when you have,
I feel that would need a very particular location.
But when you have also those large building with executive.
The limo lines. Yeah.
May I suggest one more thing? Very often you see access a ride truck, for handicap accessibility.
Very good.
I think we need to make provision for them to be able to have pick up.
Yes. Yes, very good, very good.
And the school bus.
School buses will be, yeah, specific to the, yeah.
So I say NYPD, but I didn't say, you know, placard cars, because teachers, blah, blah, right?
And you know, there's even like some designated parking for press in certain areas.
Yes, please. On 33rd Street, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, some of the placard parking is embedded in their union contracts, I believe.
Yeah, but forget
I'm not
about that,
sure.
David. You tell us that every time.
At this rate, the parking lane.
You tell us that every time. Every time we talk about the parking.
That doesn't give them the right to cheat the system the way they do.
Okay,
All right,
so
well,
first of all, we have
Or illegally parking.
Wait,
Bus.
there's also doctor and hospital parking.
So we're going to do that. Insert, delete row below, and we're going to have parking, reserved parking, something like that, right?
And in some of these will, you know, it'll be tied to a specific location, institution, facility.
Reserved parking for teachers and doctors.
This parking lane is turning into a very highly contested.
Yes.
Very.
I mean, welcome.
And that's
to
why it should be priced through the nose.
Welcome to our month.
Yeah. All right, so we got this one too. And you know, when you, yeah.
All right, so this will go out. Should we move on, Christine, or are
Yes, we're done.
Okay, do we have any old or new business? I know it's late. I mean, I was begging not to have old or new business.
Right.
It's so late.
No new business.
I have a draft of the letter I owed you before I got COVID.
Oh,
So
great.
I'll share that with you later. I'm just gonna take another flip through it, refine it, but you'll have that for
This is the follow-up letter for the scaffolds.
Yeah,
Great.
the DOB. So
And this is your coup de grace because you're leaving us, right?
yeah,
Yes.
it's very sad. But
Well,
You want to tell everybody where you're going?
Yeah, so for folks, many of whom don't know yet, I have taken a new job with Amtrak to work on Penn Station projects. So Amtrak policy, requires
any concern
So
with
Sarah's gonna smuggle the through running concept into the project.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
A good choice
Brad.
on Amtrak. Their win is our loss.
Yeah,
Nicely
well, I'm
said.
sure we'll be in touch. So I'm
Nicely
not going
said.
anywhere.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for sticking with us through this long ass night, but it was a lot of good work.
Lots of good work.
And we'll circulate the letters. We'll circulate the letters as we get them together.
Okay.
And thank you. I know I know somebody volunteered to work on one of the letters. I thank Jesse. Thank you.
Jesse did, right. I'll make the notes and then send it around.
Yeah. Okay. Good night, everyone.
All right. Cool.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.